Chapter 776. Perfect Half-Step Demonic Human King. This was no joke. It represented the most perfect half-step demonic human king, as well as the most invincible. Moreover, the opponent cultivated demonic power, which was higher than Zhen Yuan. It was a higher-level energy. Under the same cultivation base, those who cultivated demonic power could instantly kill those who didn't. This was the disparity between them. Apart from this, as members of the demonic human clan, the six also knew that perfect demonic vessels could awaken innate abilities, which would become more and more frightening along with the increase in realm. For example, if the innate ability was defense, then it would become more and more powerful along with the increase in realm. Even if the opponent's cultivation base was much higher, they would still find it hard to break through. They had only come to capture or kill the murderer. How could they have imagined that they would run into a perfect demonic vessel? The six exchanged glances. Ha ha! Black Scales laughed heartily and said to the five, "This is our luck. Perfect demonic vessel bloodline. Even my chaotic demon ocean lineage has only cultivated two of them. One is at mid-sea of soul realm, and the other is only at late astral reaching realm. If we capture this person and bring him back, the Patriarch and the rest will certainly reward us handsomely. Zhen Yuan crystals and extreme-grade spirit stones will not be lacking. I wonder where she came from. Apart from our chaotic demon ocean, are there other demonic human clans that can raise a perfect demonic vessel?" Dolong asked. The blue-skinned demonic human said, "My chaotic demon ocean is known as the 10 Great Clans. In fact, in ancient times there were more than 10 demonic human clans. There were hundreds of them. However, with the passage of time, some clans gradually declined until they disappeared. Some clans hid in the dark, never seeing the light of day. Isn't there a Yuan clan on True Spirit Continent? I heard they also have 2 demonic human kings. Perhaps she came from the Yuan clan. Who cares about the Yuan family? Would they dare to fight against our top 10 families?" Earlier on, the leader and the others had already planned to go to the True Spirit Continent and force the Yuan family to migrate over, turning our demi-demon race into the top 11 families. The perfect demi-demon bloodline that they have raised would naturally have to serve us as well. It is only natural. Haha, looks like the heavens favor my demonic human clan. One day, my demonic human clan will unite the entire Elysium." Hearing this, Yi Chen creased his brows. He didn't expect that the demonic human clan would stretch their hands this far. They actually had their eyes on the True Spirit Continent's demonic human clans, and even wanted to force the Yuan clan to migrate over. Since the Yuan clan had migrated over, the Murong clan and other demonic human clans would not be able to escape either. After all, their strength was too weak, and it was impossible for them to contend against the chaotic demon ocean's demonic human clan. Not to mention them, any power on True Spirit Continent seemed weaker than the chaotic demon ocean's demonic human clan. Murong being targeted by them was definitely a troublesome matter. I was too careless. If I had known this would happen, I would have interrupted Murong's breakthrough and left this place. Yi Chen's eyes narrowed as a cold light flashed within them. However, according to our demonic human clan's historical records, once the perfect demonic human bloodline breaks through to the perfect half-step demonic human king realm, its battle prowess will be unparalleled. With the 6 of us and 500 clansmen, it won't be difficult to defeat or kill her. However, it won't be easy to capture her. The gray-robed demonic human said with a frown. White Nightmare's killing intent overflowed. There's no need to waste so much effort. As long as we injure her with all our strength, we can bring her back. You're right. Even if she becomes a perfect half-step demonic human king, she will need time to familiarize herself with her strength. She won't be able to excavate her strength to the limit so quickly. Duolong nodded. The 6 didn't have any intention of interrupting Murong Qingqing's breakthrough. After all, the breakthrough of a perfect demonic human bloodline was no small matter. Once interrupted, who knew what would happen? In the worst case, they might bring back a cripple, and they would be punished. Therefore, they could only wait for Murong Qingqing's breakthrough before capturing her. In any case, with their current strength and numbers, they didn't need to worry about not being able to deal with her. Before that, we have to take care of this trouble first. Turning his head, White Nightmare looked at Yi Chen with a sinister gaze, his white freckled face brimming with killing intent. Since she has the perfect demonic human bloodline, there's no need to keep her alive, lest something unexpected happens. Black Scales sneered. Seems like you're quite confident. Yi Chen secretly accumulated his strength. A peerless destruction sword intent converged in his sea of soul, ready to erupt at any time and destroy everything. You think that with our strength, we shouldn't be confident? The blue-skinned demonic human looked at Yi Chen with a mocking expression. Don't waste words with him. Let's attack together and kill him. The destructive power of 500 Sea of Soul Realm demonic humans was too great, and could easily destroy the entire island. Therefore, the six decided to personally take action and kill Yi Chen. With their control ability, as long as they paid the slightest bit of attention, the island wouldn't suffer too much pressure. Very well, I'll kill you as well. Yi Chen's body suddenly leaned forward. Without any warning, he unsheathed the Thunder Disaster sword and slashed at the waning moon. Buzz. The black crescent-shaped sword energy seemed as if it wanted to devour the whole world. The scorching sun in the sky dimmed, losing its splendor. As the sword energy advanced, a pure destruction sword intent spread out like a storm, engulfing everything. At this moment, Yi Chen exerted his strength to the limit. Bastard, be careful! White Nightmare, who had tasted the might of this sword, roared. Gray-white Zhen Yuan gushed out of his body and surged forward like a surging tide. Apart from Duolong, the other four already knew that Yi Chen had an extremely powerful sword art. Facing this sword art, they couldn't be careless and had to join hands to defend. Otherwise, their lives would be in danger. Therefore, including Duolong, all five of them operated their Zhen Yuan to the limit and rushed out together. Converging with White Nightmare's gray-white Zhen Yuan, they formed a multicolored river of Zhen Yuan and intercepted the black sword energy. Rumble! The black sword energy bombarded the river of Zhen Yuan with an unstoppable momentum, bursting out energy ripples that distorted the enchantment above the island. Layers upon layers of black mist were annihilated, as if a black sheet of paper had been painted with a different color, leaving a large empty space. The sun and moon lost their radiance, and the heaven and earth lost their color. The spectating sea of soul realm demonic humans all lost their hearing and sight. They couldn't feel anything, as if time had frozen in this space. Dong. It was unknown how much time had passed. Perhaps it was a very long time, or perhaps it was only an instant, but everyone's hearing was restored. However, the loud noise that followed made them dizzy. Their vision turned black, and they almost fell from the sky. Bearing the brunt of the attack, White Nightmare and the other demonic humans couldn't help but fly back. A trace of blood leaked out from the corner of their mouths, their complexions slightly pale. Meanwhile, Yi Chen also retreated a dozen steps, his clothes fluttering in the wind. How can he be so powerful? Even with the combined strength of the six of us, we can barely block him. Facing him alone, won't we die without a doubt? Black Scales was both startled and furious. Duolong said, take out the six-way cloud polarity. Otherwise, our chances of killing him won't be high unless we have 500 of our clansmen attack together. This kid must be dealt with the six-way cloud polarity. A gloomy light flickered in the hand of the gray-robed demonic human, and a wrist-thick chain of unknown length appeared. The chain was black, with a barb at the front and a ring at the back. The ring was tied to a thin chain, and the front of the chain was a buckle that seemed to be able to hold onto something. The chain was clearly an artifact, emitting an extremely powerful fluctuation. However, according to Yi Chen's eyesight, This chain was merely a half-step extreme-grade artifact. He didn't know what kind of mysteries it had. Connect! The blue-skinned demonic human roared. Ka ka ka! A shocking scene occurred. The ends of the chains in the hands of the 6 people could actually connect with each other, interlocking with each other. In this way, the chains in the hands of the 6 people could be considered as one, turning from individual to whole. Even an idiot could tell that the power of the chains was different. Kill! The 6 lined up and brandished the chains in their hands, lashing at Yi Chen. Crack! A mountain on the island was only grazed by a chain, and it immediately turned into ashes, blown away by the qi. Meanwhile, the other 5 chains attacked at Yi Chen one after the other. Black qi surged out from the surface of the chains, making them look very thick. At first glance, they looked like 5 black flood dragons dancing in the air, trying to tear Yi Chen into pieces. Ding! His figure flickered as Yi Chen held the Thunder Disaster sword and clashed head-on with one of the chains. Immediately, an incomparably frightening power transmitted from the chain and struck Yi Chen's body along the Thunder Disaster sword. Yi Chen's entire body was blasted away. Although he had made ample preparations, he didn't expect the chain's might to be this powerful. How was this a half-step extreme-grade artifact? It was most likely a pseudo-extreme-grade artifact. With the 6 of them using a pseudo-supreme-grade artifact, although their movements were inconvenient, their Zhen Yuan was more abundant. After all, the Zhen Yuan of 6 people added together was not something a single person could compare to. He finally understood the use of the 6-way cloud pollution. With it, the 6 of them could completely contend against a strongest half-step king. What? Didn't kill him? Didn't injure him either? Duolong was astonished. So that's how it is. He's wearing a pseudo-extreme-grade defensive artifact. No wonder he can come out unscathed. Seeing the bronze runes on Yi Chen's protective Zhen Yuan, White Nightmare immediately understood. Humph. So what if he has a pseudo-extreme-grade defensive artifact? His cultivation base is only at the peak late sea of Soul Realm. He simply can't bring out the full might of a pseudo-extreme-grade defensive artifact. Moreover, activating a pseudo-extreme-grade defensive artifact requires a large amount of Zhen Yuan. He can't use it more than a few times. Kill. With that thought in mind, the 6 of them continued to wave their chains and attack Yi Chen. Whatever the chains that were spewing out with the black qi would be destroyed. Dang dang dang! Yi Chen unceasingly waved his sword to counterattack. Due to his apprehension of the chain's destructive power, he had to send out sword qi through the air to block the chain. However, the sword qi couldn't compare to the attack of the sword itself, and was easily shattered by the chain. Left without a choice, Yi Chen clashed with the chain a few more times. Each time, his blood and qi boiled and he rapidly retreated. Chapter 777. Die. White Nightmare and Hei Lin had the highest cultivation base. The 2 waved the black chains in their hands, and like 2 dragons emerging from the sea, they attacked Yi Chen from the left and right. The frightening pressure brought by the 6-way cloud pollution froze the space around Yi Chen, making it hard for him to dodge. At this moment, Yi Chen couldn't afford to hold back anymore. He shot out 4 void-shattering fingers, each striking the 2 chains. Space immediately warped. Although the 6-way cloud pollution was powerful, its trajectory was warped by the void-shattering fingers, and it slid to the side. Space profound. Hei Lin's pupils shrank. His space profound has become much more powerful. Duolong was the only one who had seen Yi Chen's void-shattering fingers. He could tell that Yi Chen's void-shattering fingers had become even more powerful. It could even warp the 6-way cloud pollution's trajectory. Yi Chen's figure shot backward. Not daring to waste a single second, he took out 2 upper supreme-grade pellets from his storage ring, swallowing one and hiding the other in his mouth. This pellet was a semi-supreme-grade pellet given to him by Dragon God's Celestial Palace. Not only could it rapidly recover Zhen Yuan, it had no side effects. Unfortunately, there was only one bottle, and every time he used one, it would be one less. The pellet melted in his mouth like a clear spring, flowing through his limbs and bones while recovering Yi Chen's withered Zhen Yuan. Let's attack together. Use the six-way array. He has a semi-supreme grade pellet for recovering Zhen Yuan. Seeing Yi Chen's Zhen Yuan rising again, the blue-skinned demonic human's expression changed as he yelled at the other five. We actually have to use the six-way array to kill him. Even if this kid dies, he should be proud. Yi Chen's toughness caused the six expressions to turn grave. The six-way cloud polishing rope was an artifact passed down in the demonic human race. It could be divided into 6 parts, and the 6 parts could also combine into one, forming a pseudo-extreme grade artifact. Corresponding to this artifact was a 6-way array. The 6-way array combined with the 6-way cloud polishing rope could not only trap the enemy, but also exhaust them, ultimately killing them. It was originally meant to deal with strongest half-step kings. Who would have thought that it would be used on a peak Sea of Soul realm cultivator like Yi Chen? The 6 of them had also consumed a lot of Zhen Yuan. Using the 6-way array required a lot of Zhen Yuan. The 6 of them swallowed down a medicinal pill at the same time, trying their best to restore their Zhen Yuan. 6-way formation, seal heaven and earth. The thin chains attached to the chains were extremely long. The 6 separated and surrounded Yi Chen in the middle, forming a 6-way array. As soon as the array was formed, a boundless and frightening black chi flowed along the chains and shot out from the 6 bodies, forming 6 black chi pillars. The chi pillars connected with each other and formed a thin black membrane, sealing Yi Chen within. Inside the 6-way array, Yi Chen could no longer see the scene on the island. Raising his head, he could only see black chi surging everywhere. What a mysterious array! Yi Chen's Zhen Yuan had already recovered 80%, so he didn't have to worry about running out of Zhen Yuan for the time being. However, the situation before him didn't allow him to be optimistic. Huff, huff. In the void, black chi surged. All of a sudden, a chain shrouded in black chi appeared out of nowhere and attacked Yi Chen with an unstoppable momentum. Yi Chen didn't dare to face it head-on. Using the void-shattering finger's power, he twisted the chain's attack trajectory. However, in the next moment, another 5 chains appeared out of nowhere. Since he couldn't see the source of the chains, Yi Chen's reaction was a bit slower. He couldn't change the trajectory of the 5 chains at the same time like before. Only 3 of them could be twisted, while the remaining 2 were like evil dragons baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Sword light flight art. Forming the sword wings on his back, Yi Chen's body flashed once, barely dodging the last 2 chains, brushing past his body. Huff, 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 huff. The second wave of attacks followed. 6 chains danced in the air, forming an inescapable net. Meanwhile, Yi Chen felt like he was walking on a tightrope. He could be hit by the chains at any moment and fall from the tightrope, smashing his body into pieces. This won't do. Do I have to use the Sky Scorpio sword? Inside the 6-way array, Yi Chen was already at a disadvantage. He would be defeated and killed sooner or later. At this moment, apart from the Sky Scorpio sword, there was nothing else that could help Yi Chen break the 6-way array and escape. However, using the Sky Scorpio sword was no small matter. The Sky Scorpio sword was the sword of the Sky Scorpio King under Emperor 4 Extreme. It contained one of the 10 great miraculous metals, the purple crystal iron. When activated by the sword chi, it could instantly crystallize and shatter anything it came into contact with. However, with Yi Chen's Zhen Yuan, he could only use the Sky Scorpio sword once. After that, his Zhen Yuan would be completely drained. Although he had the Dragon God Metal, which stored 30% of his Zhen Yuan, and could be replenished at any time, as well as half a bottle of upper clear pellets, which could also allow his Zhen Yuan to recover very quickly. However, one mustn't forget that there were still 500 Sea of Soul Realm demonic humans outside. Even if he destroyed the six-way array and killed 6 half-step demonic human kings, he would still have to face the joint attack of 500 Sea of Soul Realm demonic humans. The joint attack of 500 Sea of Soul Realm demonic humans was absolutely destructive. Not to mention him, even a strongest half-step king would perish. Putting aside all these, once the Sky Scorpio sword appeared, Yi Chen would have to silence everyone who saw it, because it was too precious. After these demonic humans returned, they would certainly report the news to their demonic human kings. At that time, the ones chasing after him would not be Sea of Soul Realm demonic humans or half-step demonic human kings, but genuine demonic human kings. With his strength, even with the Sky Scorpio sword, facing a demonic human king would only lead to death. Could he exterminate all the demonic humans here? Clearly not. The biggest possibility was that after killing 6 half-step demonic human kings, he would be killed by 500 Sea of Soul Realm demonic humans. This possibility was 90%. Whatever, it's not the time of life and death yet. If that moment comes, even if I die, I'll use the Sky Scorpio sword. Being overcautious was not Yi Chen's style, but he couldn't be too impulsive either. Yi Chen decided to wait until Murong Qingqing broke through to half-step demonic human king realm. Then, they would attack the six-way array together and open a passage in the enchantment, leaving this place. Murong, you have to hurry. Yi Chen felt that he wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. In Murong Qingqing's seclusion cave buzz, waves of powerful demon power spread out. Murong Qingqing, who was at the source of the ripples, was dripping wet one moment and then dry the next. A thick white mist seemed to pour out from the top of her head. Her face was extremely dry, and her lips had already cracked open, with many wrinkles appearing on them. Her hair had gradually turned from black to yellow, without a trace of luster. However, at this moment, an even more vast demonic power fluctuation spread out. The mountain where the cave was located trembled, and a dazzling black radiance shot out from the cracks on the mountain's surface. The entire mountain looked like a huge hedgehog, with black radiance like swords. Ha! A crisp roar pierced through the sky. Murong Qingqing suddenly opened her eyes, which were unfathomable and incomparably sharp. The long hair on her head danced like black flames. Puff! White mist spread out in all directions. Murong Qingqing opened her hands, and her body bent into a bow shape. The water chi of heaven and earth gathered with her as the center, fusing into her body and nourishing her withered body. One could see with naked eyes that Murong Qingqing's long hair turned black and supple, carrying a trace of black light. The skin on her face returned to its original white and supple state, without a trace of blemish. It was like a boiled egg that had just been peeled off. The dead skin on her lips fell off automatically, revealing her moist and supple skin. She has broken through. Don't waste time. Kill this kid as soon as possible. He Lin had a bad premonition as he yelled. At the same time, he sent a Zhen Yuan transmission to his 500 clansmen, telling them to stop Murong Qingqing and not let her come over and destroy the six-way formation. Within the six-way formation, the frequency of the chain's attacks became higher and higher. It had long since reached the point of being dazzling and indistinguishable. If not for Yi Chen's pseudo-extreme grade armor, dragon god metal, upper clear pellet, and void-shattering finger, he would have long since been killed. In fact, although Yi Chen's strength couldn't compare to the strongest half-step kings, his survivability was still above them. The strongest half-step kings were stronger than Yi Chen in terms of offense and Zhen Yuan. However, in terms of reaction, defense, and technique, they might not necessarily be able to surpass Yi Chen. This was also the biggest reason why Yi Chen could last until now. The chain's attack frequency suddenly increased, and the pressure on Yi Chen instantly increased tenfold. Ding! 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 However, What left White Nightmare and the rest in disbelief was that Yi Chen had once again used a space-profound sword art. This sword art had many loopholes, and it hadn't been fused with the space-profound, so its might wasn't that formidable. However, it still contained the space-profound. The instant it clashed with the chains, it could twist the chain's trajectory, allowing it to counter 1,000 caddies with little effort. Why is this kid so troublesome? Du Long almost cursed out loud. Go to hell. The six mustered their Zhen Yuan and brandished the chain with all their might, crazily attacking Yi Chen. The frequency once again doubled, and the Zhen Yuan within their bodies flowed like water. Puff! It was difficult for two fists to contend against forehand. Yi Chen's space-profound sword art was still imperfect, and it was hard for him to resist such a high frequency of attack. After being whipped several times by the chain, his protective Zhen Yuan, which had been amplified by the bronze armor, dimmed a bit. A tyrannical power passed through the protective Zhen Yuan and struck Yi Chen's body. Even though the power was weakened, it still caused him to spurt out a mouthful of blood. Only now could Murong Qingqing freely control the demonic power within her body. She turned her head and saw the 6 half-step kings forming the 6-way array. The array was pitch black and nothing could be seen. However, as long as one wasn't an idiot, they would know that the person inside was Yi Chen. Stop him. 500 sea of soul realm demonic humans blocked in front of Murong Qingqing. Their weapons and gloves flickered with all kinds of lights. As long as their leader gave the order, they would attack together. Murong Qingqing coldly smiled. With a ping, a pair of huge black wings unfolded from her back. Black chi surged on the wings like black flames. With a fierce flap of the wings, Murong Qingqing's body instantly disappeared and reappeared behind the 500 sea of soul realm demonic humans. So fast! The sea of soul realm demonic humans were dumbstruck. They couldn't even keep up with such speed. How could they fight? A perfect half-step king was too frightening, especially one with innate speed. Chapter 778. The Sea of Soul Realm demonic humans could only look on blankly as Murong Qingqing flew toward Yi Chen. At this moment, they didn't dare to attack, because whether it was the enemy or the 6 half-step kings leading them, they would all be within their range of attack. She's coming. Activate the 6-way array. As long as we have a bit more time, we'll be able to kill this kid. White Nightmare and the rest were paying attention to Murong Qingqing. Seeing that the 500 clansmen couldn't stop her, their complexions changed. Each of them swallowed a Zhen Yuan replenishing pellet and activated the 6-way cloud polation with all their strength. The black chi of the 6-way cloud polation roiled, and the 6 thin chains connected to it were activated. A second membrane appeared around the 6, putting them in between the 2 layers. Seeing this, Murong Qingqing's right hand turned into a blade and chopped down. Pung! The membrane around the 6 crazily distorted, causing their complexions to turn pale. It can't be broken. Murong Qingqing's brows creased. Midway, her hands rapidly formed seals. Due to her fast speed, it seemed as if her hands were shrouded in an illusory sphere. At the same time, boundless dark power rippled out from her body. Dark Devour! After forming seals, Murong Qingqing pushed her hands forward. Rumble! On the outer wall of the membrane, a dark energy ball that was constantly collapsing and rotating appeared. This dark energy ball was like a black hole, emitting an astonishing suction force that was distorting the membrane around the 6 of them. Under this terrifying suction force, the membrane became unstable, expanding and contracting at times, as if it could collapse at any time. Don't even think about it. The 6 roared and poured their Zhen Yuan into the 6-way cloud polation like water, stabilizing the membrane. Humph! Murong Qingqing coldly snorted and formed seals again, condensing a second dark energy sphere. Under the pincer attack of 2 dark energy spheres, the membrane finally couldn't endure and loudly collapsed. Puff! With the outer array broken, the 6 spurted blood, their Zhen Yuan fluctuating. Break. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Murong Qingqing struck toward Duolong, who was the closest to her. As long as one of the six was injured or became uncoordinated, the six-way cloud polation would collapse. Damn it! As a last resort, Duolong couldn't afford to attack Yichen anymore. He moved his body horizontally, avoiding Murong Qingqing's incoming palm energy. As his body moved, a flaw appeared in the six-direction formation, and a gap appeared. With a swoosh, a sword light flashed, and Yi Chen rushed out of the gap. Fortunately, you broke through in time. Yi Chen was in a sorry state. There were many tears on his clothes, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Fortunately, this was only his appearance. With the undying body, these injuries were nothing to Yi Chen. Of course, if Murong Qingqing had come a little later, the situation would have been even worse. Why didn't you interrupt me? Seeing the 500 sea of soul realm demonic humans and 6 half-step kings, Murong Qingqing sucked in a breath of cold air. She was somewhat blaming him. Facing so many enemies, Yi Chen should have interrupted her breakthrough and left together instead of risking his life to buy time for her. It's fine. You still don't believe me? Moreover, it's not like I don't have a trump card. I just can't use it casually. Yi Chen was talking about the Sky Scorpio sword. If I had broken through a little later, even if you had the Sky Scorpio sword, you might not have been safe. Murong Qingqing sized up the 6 half-step kings, then turned her head to glance at the 500 sea of soul realm demonic humans. She was speechless. This kind of lineup was not a joke. Let's go out first. I should be able to open a gap in this enchantment. Murong Qingqing's breakthrough allowed Yi Chen to heave a sigh of relief. Stalling for time was correct. Things were progressing in a good direction, and the only thing he had to face now was the enchantment. Want to leave? It won't be that easy. White Nightmare and the other 5 were attracted by Murong Qingqing's temperament. Compared to Murong Qingqing, even the perfect demonic human bloodline of Chaotic Demon Ocean Clan was far inferior to Murong Qingqing. She seemed to be the most perfect, without a single flaw. Since they had encountered such a perfect demonic human bloodline, they had no reason to let her go. Therefore, they had to capture her. Miss, you and I are both part of the demonic human clan, and you have the perfect demonic human bloodline. As long as you come back with us, I can guarantee that our demonic human clan will worship you as the saintess. This is much better than wandering the world with him. I believe you will make the right choice. Duolong said patiently. Murong Qingqing said, I have my own clan. I don't need to join the Chaotic Demon Ocean Clan. If I'm not wrong, you should be from True Spirit Continent's demonic human clan. They're too weak, and they're harming the dignity of my demonic human clan. Moreover, it's not just you. In the future, True Spirit Continent's demonic human clan will also join my Chaotic Demon Ocean. Duolong revealed a faint smile. Then we'll talk about it later. As she spoke, Murong Qingqing silently held Yi Chen's palm, secretly accumulating demonic power. Yi Chen's heart shook as he understood Murong Qingqing's plan. I'm afraid it won't be good in the future. Why don't you come to my clan as guests? As long as the two returned to their territory, they would have the final say. Let's go. Murong Qingqing spoke halfway when the wings on her back fiercely flapped. A black halo emitted from her body as she brought Yi Chen toward the enchantment at the edge of the island. Her speed was so fast that only a black light could be seen. It was no different from teleportation. Damn it! Stop her! The 6 had long since been on guard against Murong Qingqing and Yi Chen's escape. The moment the two disappeared, they brandished their chains and lashed at the two. The 6-way cloud polation was, after all, a pseudo-supreme grade artifact. Once activated, its speed was inconceivably fast. Unfortunately, Murong Qingqing's speed was not much slower than the 6-way cloud polation. Adding on the fact that she was a step ahead, there was still a certain distance between them. No matter how much the 6-way cloud polation urged, it could only gradually close the distance. The island was not small, but it was not big either. Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing soon arrived before the enchantment, with the six-way cloud polation still chasing after them. Void-shattering finger. Yi Chen urged the space profound and stabbed at the enchantment in front of him. The enchantment was infused with the power of space, and was hard to see with the naked eye. However, under the attack of the void-shattering finger, it instantly distorted and bulged outwards. Pop! A spiraling passage appeared before the two. The walls of the passage looked like glass shards, a sign of the solidification of space power. Let's go! With no time to lose, the two rushed toward the spiraling passage. How is this possible? He actually broke the enchantment. The six turned pale with fright. The hidden fog enchantment was a rare enchantment of demonic humans. Although they knew that Yi Chen knew the space profound, with his cultivation base and realm, it would be hard for him to break it. However, the scene before them clearly told them that Yi Chen had the ability to break the enchantment. It was truly beyond their expectations. Yi Chen's ability to break the enchantment was naturally not purely relying on the space profound. He also had the soul eye, which granted him the ability to instantly see through the imperfections of the enchantment. After all, not everyone outside was proficient in using the enchantment. Relying on this ability, he dared to say that he had a certain amount of confidence in breaking the enchantment. And now, he had succeeded. Without the sixth command, the 500 sea of Soul Realm demonic humans had already started attacking the moment Murong Qingqing and Yi Chen escaped. Therefore, the instant the two entered the passage, hundreds of attacks rained down on them. Shwa! Unfortunately, the two were a step faster and entered the spiraling passage first. Bang! 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 The attacks landed on the enchantment barrier and the spiraling passage, producing a series of loud explosions. The passage rapidly collapsed and chased after Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing. Open the enchantment, quickly! Duo Long transmitted his voice to the demonic humans outside through a special method. Although the Sea of Soul Realm demonic humans outside didn't know what was happening inside, they could feel the enchantment shaking. Someone had forcefully broken the enchantment and was about to come out. Therefore, with Duo Long's command, they immediately stopped operating the enchantment and dispersed their Jin Yuan. Layers of black mist scattered, and a gale blew in from the ocean outside the island. The entire island was suddenly exposed to the heaven and earth, looking extremely mysterious. The enchantment disappeared. Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing felt the pressure lighten. Looking back, the island returned to its original appearance, without any barrier. Forget about it. Let's leave this place first. Without the enchantment, Murong Qingqing's speed sharply increased once again. With a flap of the black wings on her back, she brought Yi Chen away like a black ray of light. After traveling for several dozen li, Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing suddenly felt a frightening crisis approaching. Looking back, the two's expressions instantly changed. In his line of sight, a gigantic black chain that was several meters thick and immeasurably long rushed over. Wherever it went, the seawater was plowed open, the clouds in the sky were shattered, and some small islands suddenly collapsed, turning into dust. The might of this chain was terrifying to the point of being a complete mess, and the source of the chain was in White Nightmare's hands. Unknowingly, the six-way cloud pollution had reassembled into a single chain. Holding the six-way cloud pollution chain in its other form, White Nightmare circulated his Zhen Yuan with all his might and lashed out with the chain. As the chain lashed out, it automatically enlarged and lengthened, resulting in the scene just now. This is the true power of the pseudo-extreme grade artifact, the six-way cloud polishing rope. Its previous form could be used in conjunction with arrays, but its might was spread out. Its offensive power was only several times that of a half-step extreme grade artifact, not reaching the standard of a pseudo-extreme grade artifact. Only then did Yi Chen understand how frightening the six-way cloud pollution chain was, and how frightening a pseudo-extreme grade artifact was. The bronze armor and six-way cloud pollution chain were of similar grade, but his cultivation base was only at peak late sea of soul realm. Being able to resist the six-way cloud pollution chain made him feel somewhat strange. Rumble. The six-way cloud pollution chain's might was unparalleled as it swept toward the two with unstoppable momentum. Waning moon. Demonic finger. Yi Chen and Morong Qingqing turned around and used their strongest moves, attacking the chain. Chapter 779. The black crescent-shaped sword power contained the profoundness of metal and water. It was sharp and tenacious at the same time, and had great potential. When the sword was swung out, it seemed like the void was about to be cut open. Before it collided with the chains, the sharp sword power had already counterattacked. The black finger energy was Morong Qingqing's innate skill, demonic finger. Using Morong Qingqing's perfect half-step demonic king strength, its might was 10 times greater than before. The finger shot out, dragging a heart-palpitating black luster behind it, as if it was a resplendent black diamond. Dong! The crescent-shaped sword energy and the black finger energy collided with the chain, creating a shockwave that swept out in all directions. The island below exploded with a bang, and the surrounding 100 li of seawater caved in by several thousand meters. A huge black hole also appeared in the sky. This was the sign of stunning sky being torn apart by the shockwave. The might of the exchange between the two sides had already faintly surpassed the peak confrontation of two strongest half-step kings. The shockwave not only destroyed everything in the vicinity, but also sent Yi Chen and Morong Qingqing flying with blood flowing from the corners of their mouth. White Nightmare also spurted out blood. Yi Chen's waning moon and Morong Qingqing's demonic finger were enough to deal with one of them, but two of them were beyond his power. Moreover, the six-way cloud scraping rope was not an ordinary pseudo-supreme grade artifact, and its Zhen Yuan requirement was enormous. Thus, White Nightmare's Zhen Yuan, which wasn't much to begin with, made him incomparably weak. His injuries seemed even more severe than those of Yi Chen and Morong Qingqing. You didn't stop them? Beside him, He Lin's face was gloomy. Morong Qingqing's speed was astonishing, and the distance between them was close to 100 li. Even if they chased, they wouldn't be able to catch up. White Nightmare rigidly stared at the two in the distance and said, "Worthy of being a perfect half-step demonic human king. As soon as she entered this realm, her strength is already close to a strongest half-step king. Given some time, it won't be hard for her to become a strongest half-step king." On the side, Duolong smiled bitterly and said, "There's also that kid. His cultivation base is not high, but the profound sense martial skill he comprehended is incomparably profound, allowing him to display 10 times his strength. Fortunately, he hasn't become a half-step king. Otherwise, the ones running away wouldn't be them, but us. Although we didn't catch them, it's not like we didn't gain anything. Since we found the whereabouts of perfect half-step demonic human kings, the patriarchs will reward us with some Zhen Yuan crystals and supreme-grade spirit stones. It's better than returning empty-handed." The blue-skinned humanoid comforted himself. After flying for tens of thousands of miles in a single breath, Morong Qingqing and Yi Chen finally slowed down a little, maintaining their normal speed. A pseudo-supreme grade artifact really can't be underestimated. That demonic human strength was lower than ours, but he could display a might surpassing ours. Trivial injuries were nothing to the two. Yi Chen had the undying body and instantly recovered. On the other hand, Morong Qingqing had a perfect demonic human bloodline, and her fourth-step demonic body was no small matter. Although her recovery speed was inferior to Yi Chen's, she had long since recovered. At this moment Yi Chen sighed. Morong Qingqing said, "This chain should be a peak existence among pseudo-supreme grade artifacts." Pseudo-supreme grade artifacts were usually replicas of supreme grade artifacts, and their might could hardly reach even half of an extreme grade artifact's might. Pseudo-supreme grade artifacts were inferior to pseudo-supreme grade artifacts, but it was not to say that pseudo-supreme grade artifacts were necessarily inferior to pseudo-supreme grade artifacts. Some extremely powerful pseudo-supreme grade artifacts were not inferior to pseudo-supreme grade artifacts at all. However, this six-way cloud pollution chains might was simply too powerful, and it had many transformations. Even with the two of them joining hands, they could only slightly suppress it, and suffered some minor injuries. If it were the other two, they would have been smashed into meat paste by the chain. The demonic humans are the rulers of chaotic demonic ocean, and their hands and eyes are everywhere. It seems like we can't stay here any longer. We have to leave as soon as possible. They had hidden themselves well enough, and were more than 1,000,000 li away from the scene of the incident. But they had still been discovered. It was easy to see how terrifying the demonic humans' control over chaotic demonic ocean was. It would be very difficult to escape their pursuit. The two no longer hesitated, choosing a direction and flying at a normal speed. After the two escaped, White Nightmare's group of 6 didn't linger on the island any longer. They immediately set off, returning to the demonic humans' headquarters. They wanted to report the discovery of the perfect demonic human bloodline and let the higher-ups make a decision. On the way back, the black-robed old man of the demonic human clan was also hurrying. His figure flashed through the void, and his speed was unimaginable. A moment ago, he was still 100,000 li away, but the next moment, he was right in front of them. With the appearance of the Black Chi, the old man stopped as usual and began to investigate. The old man closed his eyes, and an incorporeal soul power spread out in all directions, covering a radius of several tens of thousands li. Seeing that there was nothing strange within several tens of thousands li, the old man formed a seal with both hands and let out a low roar. The evenly spread out soul power spread out, and the area it covered expanded by several times, reaching a radius of 200,000 li. The old man opened his eyes, and a strange expression appeared on his face. Puff! The Black Chi dissipated, and the old man disappeared. White Nightmare's group of 6 quickly led the 600 clansmen. Suddenly, a Black Chi appeared in the sky before them, and a black-robed old man walked out. Ancestor! White Nightmare and the rest were shocked, and one after another, they bowed in respect. The 500 clansmen behind them directly knelt in the void, not daring to raise their heads. The black-robed old man was none other than one of the demonic human kings of the demonic human clan. Demonic human kings were extremely revered existences no matter where they were. In the demonic human clan, they were called Ancestor. This black-robed old man was extremely old, at least several hundred years old. Thus, he was worthy of being called Ancestor. All of you rise. The black-robed old man said expressionlessly. Yes. White Nightmare and the 500 clansmen rose one after another. From your appearance, you seem to have fought with someone? The black-robed old man asked. The fat demonic human Duolong said, Ancestor, we've already found the culprit, but we were useless. He escaped again. The 6 of you together with the 6-way cloud polishing rope and 600 clansmen still couldn't catch him. Could he be a strongest half-step king? The black-robed old man's face sank. Beside him, Black Scales explained, Ancestor, he's not a strongest half-step king, but he has grasped an extremely profound space profound, able to distort the 6-way cloud polishing rope's attack trajectory. Moreover, his strength is also close to a strongest half-step king. His sword arts are unpredictable and hard to deal with. Oh, grasping space profound. This is not surprising. Space profound is one of the strongest profounds, and has many wondrous uses. It can't be calculated with common sense. It's understandable that you couldn't catch him. But from your expressions, I'm afraid that's not the main reason. The black-robed old man observed their expressions and asked back. Ancestor is wise. Duolong cupped his hands and said, He was able to escape because he had a companion, and that companion's identity is no small matter. He has perfect demonic human bloodline and has already advanced to half-step king realm, possessing innate speed abilities. Perfect demonic human bloodline? Speak quickly. The black-robed old man's complexion suddenly changed, no longer maintaining his calm demeanor. Duolong didn't dare to keep the old man in suspense and said, "According to our conjecture, she should be from True Spirit Continent. When we talked to her, she didn't deny it either. I'm thinking that our chaotic demonic ocean lineage should migrate people from True Spirit Continent to strengthen our clan." The black-robed old man glared at Duolong. "Don't ask about matters that don't concern you." Yes. Duolong was startled and immediately lowered his head. True Spirit Continent is not a good place. There are as many kings as there are clouds in the sky, far more than any other place. If our chaotic demonic ocean lineage wants to subdue the True Spirit Continent's demonic human clan, we have to think long and hard. We can't be too hasty, lest we bring disaster upon ourselves. Although the chaotic demon ocean's demonic human clan seemed to be much more powerful than any power on True Spirit Continent, True Spirit Continent was not as simple as it looked. True Spirit Continent was known as the Land of 100 Kings, and the number of life and death kings had never been less than 100. And this was only the human side. Adding the demonic beasts and other races, there were even more life and death kings. If one recklessly charged in, even the chaotic demon ocean's demonic human clan would not be able to escape unscathed. Otherwise, they would have long since forced the entire True Spirit Continent to migrate. All right, you go back and report this matter. I'll chase after them. The black-robed old man attached great importance to this matter. He wished he could immediately chase after that perfect demonic human bloodline. Unfortunately, 2 days had already passed, and the other party had already fled several million li away. With his ability, he couldn't find them in a short time. Yes, Duolong, White Nightmare, and the other 5 immediately left with 600 clansmen. Perfect demonic human bloodline, hee. The black-robed old man coldly smiled and his body turned into black chi, disappearing like a bubble. Chaotic demonic ocean occupied several million li. 5 days later, Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing left chaotic demonic ocean and arrived at the ocean outside. The two didn't continue on their way, but instead found a secluded island as a temporary resting place. Because Murong Qingqing had just entered the half-step king realm, she didn't have the time to consolidate her cultivation base and familiarize herself with her abilities. She could use this opportunity to consolidate her foundation. Moreover, with demonic power crystals, she could continue to strengthen her Zhen Yuan after consolidating her cultivation base. As for Yi Chen, although he had no hope of entering the half-step king realm for the time being, his Space Profound had already reached 40% completion, and his Space Profound sword art had also taken shape. As long as he had the time, creating a Space Profound sword art wouldn't be too difficult. Once the Space Profound was formed, Yi Chen's battle strength would naturally soar, and he would be able to contend against strongest half-step kings. Moreover, the Space Profound had many uses, and Yi Chen only knew a few of them. But just this little bit was enough to benefit him immensely, allowing him to contend against 6 half-step demonic human kings. If not for the Space Profound, he would have been defeated long ago. Time passed bit by bit. In the blink of an eye, a week had passed. Break. In a mountain range in the center of the island, Yi Chen held the Thunder Disaster sword in his hand and waved it out. The mountain in front of him twisted instantly before shattering like a mirror. Space Profound is indeed formidable. This sword art of mine can't be considered complete, but its might is already not inferior to Waning Moon. Moreover, it's even more difficult to guard against. As long as one is enveloped by the sword aura, it'll be like a mirror, hard to dodge. If one's strength is slightly weaker, they'll be shattered into millions of pieces. Yi Chen himself was astonished by the sword art's destructive power. What a powerful human! It's better to retreat. There were many oceanic beasts in the deep ocean. The sudden appearance of two humans on the island had already attracted the attention of many powerful oceanic beasts. The oceanic beast that had retreated a moment ago was a half-step demonic beast king, not inferior to a human half-step king. Seeing Yi Chen's sword art so powerful, how could it dare to have any devious thoughts? It immediately retreated. Chapter 780. Yi Chen smiled faintly and didn't mind it too much. Although the opponent's concealment skill was very high, being able to merge with the seawater, it still couldn't escape his soul power's detection. The reason why he didn't make things difficult for him was because he was in the deep sea, the territory of the sea beasts. It was best not to cause any trouble. This sword move has already reached 60 to 70% completion. I can give it a name now. Thinking back to the scene just now, Yi Chen mumbled to himself, "Let's call it bewitching mirror shattering." When the sword was waved out, the mountain seemed to be reflected in a mirror and then shattered, giving people a very illusory feeling. Therefore, the first two words were very suitable, as it was both poetic and dreamy. The second two words, shattering, brought people back to the cruel atmosphere. No matter how beautiful the bewitching mirror was, it would still shatter one day. Swords were originally used for killing, and sword moves were also created for killing. Bewitching mirror shattering. Bewitching mirror shattering. Yi Chen repeated it twice and suddenly smiled. The space profound has many wondrous uses. This move is just one of the uses of the space profound. Next, I will create the second and third moves, and the space profound sword art will also become one of my strongest sword art. The theory of bewitching mirror shattering was not hard. It was to spread out the space power under the urging of the sword chi. Once the space power locked onto the target, it would suddenly condense and freeze the opponent. Then, under the effect of the sword chi, it would shatter along with the opponent. The theory was not hard, but the execution was not so simple. First, the space profound had to be very profound, and then it had to be closely integrated with the sword art. Otherwise, the opponent would be able to find an opening and escape, and the move would be broken. Another 2 weeks passed, and Yi Chen's mastery of bewitching mirror shattering was getting better and better. It had also reached 70% completion from 60 to 70%. He could feel that as this move was perfected, his recently stagnant space profound was steadily improving. With the improvement of the space profound, his mastery of bewitching mirror shattering was getting better and better. The two complemented each other, and the improvement of the move was even faster. Rumble! On this day, a mountain peak in the west of the mountain range started to shake, and an extremely powerful demonic ripple spread out in all directions. Murong is coming out of seclusion. Yi Chen looked over. Murong Qingqing had consolidated her cultivation a week ago. In the following week, she had been using the demonic crystals to increase her demonic power. The demonic crystals were worthy of being called demonic crystals. In just a week, her cultivation had doubled. The demonic power fluctuations she emitted were much stronger than when she had just advanced to the half-step demonic king realm. Even the space around her was trembling. Stretching out her right hand, Murong Qingqing gently pushed forward. Puff! Powerful demonic energy gushed out, piercing through the mountain wall that was hundreds of meters thick. It was no harder than tofu. In a flash, Murong Qingqing turned into a black rainbow and flew out of the mountain peak. "It looks like your cultivation has doubled." Yi Chen walked over and speculated based on the demonic aura emitted by Murong Qingqing. Murong Qingqing said, "Originally, it was impossible to double my cultivation in a week. However, after I advanced to the half-step demonic king realm, the remnant demonic power essence in my body started to dilute and merge with my demonic power. Demonic power essence is no small matter. It is your fortune to have obtained it. Recalling the past, Yi Chen couldn't help but sigh at the effect of the demonic power essence on Murong Qingqing. Without the demonic power essence, it would have been extremely difficult for Murong Qingqing to advance in this world where demonic qi was scarce. Others might have advanced by 2 realms, but she might not have advanced by 1 realm. It could be said that the demonic power essence made Murong Qingqing who she was today. This demonic power essence still has its mysteries. Murong Qingqing reached out her left hand. Amidst the flickering black light, a black crystal the size of a date seed rose up. Yi Chen said in surprise, "You can already control the demonic power essence?" "Yes, but it can't leave my body. Otherwise, it will scatter." Murong Qingqing faintly nodded and continued, "I can feel that there is something imprinted inside. It seems to be a demon race martial art or something. In the past couple of days, some vague fragments of information have appeared in my head. In the parallel space battlefield, the demonic king has been sealed for countless years, and his demonic power has been severely depleted. Even so, the Thunder King, the Beast King, and the Shining King were almost killed by him. It is easy to see that at his peak, he had the strength of a titled monarch. It is understandable that his demonic power essence is a bit mysterious." Yi Chen looked at the remaining demonic power essence and found that it was somewhat similar to a demonic power crystal, but not completely. There were many complicated and profound patterns inside. These patterns were not inanimate objects, but were slowly moving and changing form from time to time. "My space-profound sword art has reached 70 to 80% completion, and its power has surpassed Waning Moon. Your cultivation base has also been consolidated, and it has doubled. We can leave now." As he spoke, Yi Chen had the intention to leave. "Let's go." After staying for so many days, it was time to leave. Murong Qingqing did not have any objections. The deep ocean was boundless, as if there was no end to it. After flying above the ocean for 7 days and 7 nights, the two crossed millions of li and arrived at a new ocean region. This ocean region was marked on the map as Richlight Oceanspan. The reason it was called Richlight Oceanspan was because there were many ruins here. Some of these ruins would often be explored by people, obtaining treasures that ordinary people could only dream of. As time went by, this ocean region got its name. Yi Chen spent a large amount of spirit stones to buy a map and decided to go there to try his luck. The Sky Scorpio sword in his storage ring was a huge source of Zhenyuan. Yi Chen really couldn't use it. Thunder Disaster Sword and other semi-extreme grade swords were also starting to fall behind. He needed a pseudo-extreme grade sword, or perhaps an even more powerful semi-extreme grade sword. As for Murong Qingqing, she didn't have a pair of artifact gloves. "I heard that Richlight Oceanspan is very prosperous, and auctions are often held there. Perhaps we won't need to explore and can obtain what we want." Murong Qingqing smiled. "I hope so." Yi Chen faintly nodded. Foursquare Island was one of the more famous islands in Richlight Oceanspan. The island was vast and towering, shaped like a square, hence the name Foursquare Island. There were many forces stationed on Foursquare Island, including human sex, demonic beast and oceanic beast forces, as well as some organizations of deviant species. In short, one could see all kinds of strange lifeforms here. It wouldn't be strange if one ran into them on the street, since the people here had long since become accustomed to it. With influence there would naturally be business. The most prosperous business here was undoubtedly the auction house, followed by miscellaneous goods stores, material stores, restaurants, and so on. Due to Richlight Oceanspan's peculiarity, many experts from the surrounding ocean span would come here from time to try their luck. As a result, the experts here were like cabbages. Sea of Soul Realm experts were as numerous as dogs, and half-step kings could be found everywhere. Experts were not very valuable here, but they were also very valuable. Above the ocean near Foursquare Island, numerous figures stood in the sky. Dozens of li away from these figures, Two figures were engaged in an intense battle. The flames of battle soared into the sky, and the multicolored chi even eclipsed the blazing sun in the sky. "Bastard, eat my fist!" One was a golden-haired youngster, and the other was a red-faced man with a wide mouth and a square face. The two fiercely fought, and their chi raised several hundred meters tall waves. Amidst the intense battle, the golden-haired youngster roared and stomped on the waves, punching toward the red-faced man in the sky. This fist didn't contain Jin Yuan, but an incomparably dense demonic power. The demonic power was golden in color and incomparably resplendent. "Little bastard, your grandpa will skin you alive." The red-faced man wasn't someone to be trifled with. Raising the blade in his hand, he rapidly spun down. The snow-white blade light was like a tornado, devouring the golden fist power and then devouring the golden-haired youngster. The fierceness of the blade aura was frightening. There are so many experts here. 10 to 20% of the spectators are half-step kings. Amidst the crowd, two figures, one male and one female, had appeared out of nowhere. They were Yi Chen and Murong Qinqing. Yi Chen glanced around and exclaimed. Murong Qinqing was attracted by the battle and said, "That golden-haired youngster should be a half-step demonic beast king. I wonder what kind of demonic beast he is? Young miss must be a newcomer. You don't even know the young master of the Golden Lion clan, Shi Xiaobao." Beside her, a handsome youngster in luxurious clothes was attracted by Murong Qinqing's clear and melodious voice. He couldn't help but turn his head and see that the speaker was a peerless beauty. His eyes couldn't help but brighten as he said, "Golden Lion clan?" Murong Qinqing had never heard of it. Yi Chen, on the other hand, had heard of it. The Golden Lion clan should be one of the 100 beasts. They have boundless strength, and the demonic power they cultivate is called Golden Demonic Power. Among the 100 beasts, they are ranked at the top. In the ancient era, it was said that there were more than 100 kinds of peak aptitude demonic beasts. These demonic beasts were classified as 100 beasts, and the Golden Lion clan was one of them. Some of the ancestors of the half-beast clans were also part of the 100 beasts, such as Nine-Headed Snake, Sky Tiger, Blue-Eyed White Wolf, and Yen Fengfeng. Moreover, they were ranked even higher than the Golden Lion clan. After all, the Blue Luan was a descendant of the Phoenix. "You seem to know quite a bit." The well-dressed youngster sized up Yi Chen. Seeing that Yi Chen was merely at the peak of Late Sea of Soul Realm, he couldn't help but reveal a disdainful expression, thinking that he was merely Murong Qinqing's follower. How could a follower have the qualifications to butt in? Clearing his throat, he no longer looked at Yi Chen and said to Murong Qinqing, "Shi Xiaobao is a rare genius of the Golden Lion clan. His battle strength is extremely frightening. Even if I were to face him, I wouldn't have much of a chance of victory. As for this red-faced man, he is called Hong Aokuan. Because of a quarrel, the two have turned into a big battle. From the looks of it, they won't stop until one of them is dead." Rumble. As the well-dressed youngster spoke, the battle between Shi Xiaobao and Hong Aokuan reached its climax. Roar. A muffled, thunderous roar resounded as Shi Xiaobao suddenly transformed into his true form, turning into a 30-meter-tall golden lion. This golden lion had 4 pillar-like limbs, sharp claws, and a golden mane that shone resplendently as if forged from gold. Amidst his roar, a golden light radiated in all directions as he suddenly leaped up, appearing above Hong Aokuan and stomping down. Hong Aokuan's battle strength was more or less the same as Shi Xiaobao's in human form. At this moment, Shi Xiaobao had reverted to his true form, so how could he be his opponent? He was stomped down, his whole body bathed in blood. Shi Xiaobao was a savage by nature. After stomping down on Hong Aokuan, his huge head swooped down and fiercely bit down on Hong Aokuan's body. Poochie! Hong Aokuan's body was torn in two at the waist. Blood spurted out as he died on the spot. Roar! Spitting out the corpse, Shi Xiaobao faced the sky and roared. A domineering aura erupted, intimidating many people. Chapter 781. He is indeed worthy of being a rare genius of the Golden Lion race. Once he regains his true form, his strength will increase by several folds. Hong Aokuan can be considered a powerful half-step king, but he was actually bitten in two. Everyone was already used to the tragic death of a half-step king. In Richlight oceanography, experts died every day. They were happy to watch the show. This is already the second half-step King Shi Xiaobao has killed in this month. TSK, this golden lion is indeed brave and fierce. The luxuriously dressed youth said arrogantly with battle intent rising in his heart. Let's go. The battle had already ended, and Golden Lion Shi Xiaobao had the last laugh. Yi Chen also gained a new understanding of this peak high-grade demonic beast. Murong Qingqing followed behind Yi Chen. What's going on? A lackey actually wants the master to follow him? The luxuriously dressed youth was displeased, but he couldn't say anything. After all, even Murong Qingqing didn't object, so why should he? Miss, this one is Lin Yuxuan. Remember me? The luxuriously dressed youth Lin Yuxuan sent a Zhen Yuan transmission to Murong Qingqing. Murong Qingqing paused for a moment, but didn't say anything. She followed behind Yi Chen, flying toward the nearby Four-Square Island. The top of Four-Square Island was very flat, and a huge city was situated on it, spanning several dozen li in both length and width. Landing on a long street, Yi Chen casually glanced around and found a map shop. Boss, give me a map of Four-Square City. Yi Chen arrived in front of the shop counter and knocked on the counter with his finger. All right, here's your map. It's worth 10 upper-grade spirit stones. The shop owner took out a folded map from the counter drawer and placed it on the counter. 10 upper-grade spirit stones for a map of a city? Yi Chen's mouth twitched, but he didn't say anything. Walking out of the shop, Murong Qingqing laughed. The people who come here are all experts with a net worth of millions. They don't care about a mere 10 upper-grade spirit stones. Every place has a price, and it varies from person to person. However, compared to other places, it's a bit too ruthless. In an ordinary city in a small country, a city map would only cost a few taels at most. Even those super cities like the Martial City would only cost a few low-grade spirit stones. Compared to this place, the difference was too big. Of course, such a high price was understandable. The people here were all Almighty Sea of Soul Realm experts and half-step kings. If one were to ask for a few low-grade spirit stones, some of them would not be able to take it out. After all, everyone had only upper-grade spirit stones, and mid-grade spirit stones were rare. The map of Four-Square City was very detailed. What was on each street was clearly marked. Let's go to the material store first. Maybe I can find what I need. Breaking through to Half-Step King Realm was not without shortcut. According to Battle King's memories, there was a kind of half-step extreme-grade spirit plant called heart-protecting flower that could protect the heart. If it could be refined into a heart-protecting pellet, the effect would be doubled. With the heart-protecting flower, Yi Chen would be able to increase the speed of his blood flow several times when breaking through to Half-Step King Realm. As long as the speed did not reach a certain level, he would not have to worry about his heart not being able to bear it. The material shop was on the 3rd street next door. This street was filled with material shops and grocery stores. Most of the things inside were not of much value, but it was possible to find priceless treasures. It depended on whether one had luck and good eyesight. Arriving at the first material store on the street, Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing walked in. 2 guests, feel free to look around. Our store's goods are guaranteed to be cheaper than other stores. The store owner greeted them warmly. Yi Chen faintly nodded. In this material store, most of the materials were of the middle grade. There were very few high-grade materials. As for the semi-supreme grade materials, they were all locked in the counters and could only be seen through the crystal. In some corners there were some materials of unknown grade and function. Because they had been piled up there for many years, some dust had already fallen on them, making them look even more ancient. This place actually has soul stones, but there aren't many of them. On the wooden shelf on the east side, Yi Chen saw a few silver-black soul stones. He extended his soul power, but it was immediately blocked by the faint silver light outside the soul stones. Although it could not block all of them, it could still somewhat limit the soul power. Moreover, there were only a few of them. Only when there were enough of them could one's soul power be blocked. Without a doubt, these soul stones were genuine. A fist-sized soul stone would be worth about 5,000 upper-grade spirit stones on the market. These soul stones are all half the size of a fist. So, 4,000 upper-grade spirit stones would not be too much of a scam. Yi Chen sized them up, then turned around to look for something else. "Boss, do you have any more soul stones?" Right at this moment, a man walked over, picked up a soul stone from the wooden shelf, and asked the boss. Seeing that business had come, the boss smiled and said, Yes, there are some in the inventory. But they are for my own use. Look at the price." The boss rubbed his hands. "Don't worry, I will take as many as you have. In addition, I will add 5% to the price." This man was wearing a white robe and had a graceful bearing. It was obvious that he was a high-level figure in a sect. Collecting soul stones was probably a sect's mission. A powerful sect must have a protective formation that could block soul power. Therefore, soul stones were quite necessary. Therefore, soul stones were generally useless for individuals. But they were very useful for a sect. "Alright, follow me. Xiaofeng, help me look after the store." The boss smiled and led the white-robed man into one of the rooms in the store. "Let's go and have a look at the other stores." After walking around the store, Yi Chen did not see anything good. He left the store with Murong Qingqing and returned to the street. Next, Yi Chen visited 7 or 8 stores in a row. Finally, he found 3 heart-nourishing grass, 2 spirit-melting grass, and 1 ice-spirit flower. Heart-nourishing grass was a top-rank spirit plant. It had the same effect as the heart-protecting flower. However, the difference between the two was that the heart-protecting flower emphasized the word protect. For a certain period of time, the heart-nourishing grass had an extremely powerful protective effect. On the other hand, the heart-nourishing grass was used to nourish the heart and strengthen it. After a long time, the heart would naturally be able to withstand more pressure. The 3 heart-nourishing grass could increase Yi Chen's chances of breaking through to half-step king realm to a certain extent. But, whether he would succeed or not, Yi Chen did not know for now. As for the top-rank spirit plant, spirit-melting grass, it was an extremely special spirit plant. This kind of spirit plant could allow Zhen Yuan and blood to fuse for a longer period of time. When this period of time was considerable, Yi Chen would be able to fuse his Zhen Yuan with his blood and successfully enter half-step king realm without the heart-protecting flower and heart-nourishing grass. Unfortunately, 2 plants were still too little. As for the last one, the ice spirit flower was used as a precaution. When the pressure on the heart was too great and could not be reduced in a short period of time, the ice spirit flower could be swallowed to freeze the blood flow and reduce the pressure on the heart, preventing the blood from necrosis. Using these 3 spirit plants together would undoubtedly increase the success rate. But, in truth, the effect was still not as good as the heart-protecting flower. After all, although the effect of the heart-protecting flower was very short, only lasting for a week or so, it still had a very powerful protective effect on the heart during this period of time. The 3 heart-nourishing grass cost Yi Chen 800,000 top-rank spirit stones. The spirit-melting grass cost 200,000, so 2 would be 400,000. The ice spirit flower was a bit cheaper, costing 80,000 each. The total cost was 1,280,000 top-rank spirit stones, which was several times more expensive than other spirit plants of the same rank. The reason why it was so expensive was because everyone knew that it was a supplementary item for breaking through to half-step king realm. Once one broke through to half-step king realm, Why would they care about 1 million top-rank spirit stones? Let's wait and see. The heart-nourishing grass has a nurturing process, so it won't help me break through to half-step king realm in a short period of time. Once I find the heart-protecting flower, I will be able to do so soon. Yi Chen sighed. According to the map, he and Murong Qincheng went to another street and entered one material store after another. The sun was setting in the west, and a day passed by quickly. Yi Chen and Murong Qincheng had visited almost all of the material stores in Four Square City, but couldn't find a single heart-protecting flower. However, they heard from a material store owner that a trace of a heart-protecting flower appeared in an auction half a year ago and was sold for a high price of 5 million top-rank spirit stones. No matter where it was, the heart-protecting flower was a rare treasure. It was even rarer than some of the top-rank materials, and had a price but no market. After all, there were a lot of peak-level late Sea of Soul Realm experts in 5th rank and even 4th rank section. Once there was a heart-protecting flower, they would go crazy over it. It was impossible for it to be found in the outside world. Therefore, there were a lot of people who had heard of the heart-protecting flower, but very few who had actually seen it. After walking around with Yi Chen, Murong Qincheng also had some small gains. What she bought were all spirit plants with demonic nature. Their value was not high, and there were even some suspicions that it was a buy-one-get-one-free deal. In the Elysium, there were very few people who cultivated demonic arts, and not many people who cultivated demonic arts. After buying dozens of materials, they only spent 100,000 top-rank spirit stones, which was a free deal. After finding a restaurant with a courtyard, the two checked in. Night fell, and the cold wind whistled. Yi Chen was meditating in a special secret room in the restaurant. On the walls of the secret room, there were a few lamps, which were very bright and not dazzling. After a while, Yi Chen opened his eyes and took out 3 stalks of heart-nourishing grass from his storage ring. These 3 stalks of heart-nourishing grass had different maturity levels. The most mature one was 5,200 years old, while the least mature one was only 3,300 years old. Picking out the least mature one, Yi Chen opened his mouth and inhaled. The medicinal power inside the heart-nourishing grass turned into a sparkling blood light and was sent into Yi Chen's mouth. Gulp! Once the sparkling blood light entered his body, it immediately stuck to the surface of his beating heart. Under his inner vision, Yi Chen could see that his heart was covered with a layer of blood clothes. This blood clothes kept on wriggling, and some of the blood strands seeped into his heart, nourishing it. After about half a cup of tea's time, Yi Chen felt a chill in his heart, which was then followed by a wave of heat. The cold and heat kept on coming, and it was hard to tell whether it was the cold or the heat. In the end, Yi Chen decided to just ignore it and let the heart-nourishing grass nourish his heart. Time passed by day after day. In the blink of an eye, Yi Chen and Murong Qincheng had stayed for 3 days. In these 3 days, the 3,300 years old heart-nourishing grass had already absorbed half of its medicinal power into Yi Chen's heart. Yi Chen could clearly feel that his heart had become a lot stronger. Although its beating frequency did not change, it was more powerful than before. On this day, Yi Chen and Murong Qincheng came to a tea-house in the central square of Four Square City. This tea-house was very unusual. The people who came to drink tea were all experts who wanted to form a team. As for why they wanted to form a team, it was naturally to explore the ruins. There were too many dangers in the ruins. If they went alone, they would most likely die in there. Chapter 782. As soon as Yi Chen and Murong Qincheng entered the tea-house, they didn't join in the fun. Instead, they found a window seat and sat down, ordering 2 cups of tea. The tea-house was huge, divided into 4 floors. The center was hollow, so one could see the 4th floor from the 1st floor, and the 1st floor from the 4th floor. Yi Chen and Murong Qincheng were on the east side of the 2nd floor. Although there were a lot of people in the tea-house, there wasn't any noise. Everyone was like Yi Chen and Murong Qincheng, sitting at their seats and drinking tea with their eyes closed. Others had arranged to enter the secret chambers of each floor to discuss matters. Everything seemed to be in order. 2 guests, your tea. The footsteps of the waiter were very light. When he arrived in front of Yi Chen, he said softly. Yi Chen nodded and told the waiter to put down the tea. The freshly brewed tea was slightly hot. Yi Chen picked it up and blew on it a few times. Using this opportunity, he shifted his gaze and started to observe the people in the tea-house. There was nothing much to see on the first floor. Everyone was at the Sea of Soul realm, and there wasn't a single half-step king. Yi Chen's gaze first fell on the second floor. On the second floor, there was only one person who caught Yi Chen's attention. It was the yellow-robed woman sitting on the west side. She looked to be in her 30s, and her face was tender and beautiful. Her nose was high, and her eyes were pitch black with a hint of deep yellow. Her gaze was very scattered, and it was hard to tell where her focus was. What caught Yi Chen's attention was not her appearance, but the extremely well-hidden strange aura on her body. This kind of aura was like a maggot in one's bones, extremely feminine. I wonder what kind of demonic beast cultivated it? Yi Chen thought to himself. Just as Yi Chen was sizing up the yellow-robed woman, she seemed to have sensed something. She turned her head toward Yi Chen, revealing a gentle yet chilling smile. Not to be trifled with. Yi Chen gave him a label. Compared to the second floor, there were undoubtedly more people worthy of attention on the third floor. There were twin brothers sitting by the railing. One was as majestic as a tower, while the other was as sturdy as a bull. Both of them wore copper earrings on their left and right ears respectively. There was a middle-aged scholar who was holding a sword and resting with his eyes closed. There was a haggard old woman with a sinister aura. There was a bald fatty with a tattoo on his head. There was also a strange old man wearing a raincoat. There are dozens of peak half-step kings in this tea-house, and I can't see through 7 or 8 of them. I'm afraid they are close to strongest half-step kings. Murong Qingqing was also observing the people in the tea-house. Yi Chen said, the yellow-clothed woman on the second floor and the old man in the raincoat on the third floor should be the strongest. The others aren't weak either. They're all rare powerhouses. Among the ones worth paying attention to, the yellow-robed woman and the raincoat old man posed the greatest threat to Yi Chen. Even if they weren't strongest half-step kings, they wouldn't be far off. My eyesight is still a bit worse than yours. I don't see anything wrong with these two. Murong Qingqing sized up the yellow-robed woman and the old man again and couldn't help but lightly shake her head. She didn't have the frightening intuition that Yi Chen had. Yi Chen chuckled. Based on my first impression, there might be some oversights. Perhaps there are even more hidden ones. The tea-house was very quiet. From time to time, a group of people would walk out of the secret pavilion and leave the tea-house. The number of people in the tea-house was getting fewer and fewer, and it was getting quieter and quieter. Look, that yellow-robed woman has been invited away, Murong Qingqing said. Yi Chen looked over and saw that the one who invited the yellow-robed woman was a waiter of a tea-house. He led the woman to a secret pavilion on the third floor. Soon after, the door of the pavilion closed, and the waiter walked out. Half a cup of tea's time later, the twin brothers were also invited into the secret pavilion. Another half a cup of tea's time later, the servant walked in front of Murong Qingqing. Miss, the owner of the secret pavilion invites you for a chat. Murong Qingqing wasn't surprised at all. After all, everyone came to the tea-house for the same purpose, which was to form a team and explore the ruins together. I'm with him. Murong Qingqing knew that with Yi Chen's cultivation base, he would be looked down upon. In this world, how many people could be like Yi Chen, who could kill people with higher realms as if they were eating? Those who saw him for the first time would think that he could compete with ordinary half-step kings at most. Whether he could win or not was another matter. The servant obviously got the hint. Then let's go together. Following the servant, the two arrived at the door of the secret pavilion on the third floor. With a creaking sound, the secret pavilion's door opened, and Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing walked in. Seems like there is a soul stone array inlaid on the wall. Entering the secret pavilion, Yi Chen didn't find anything mysterious. Instead, his soul power could seep out, but outside, his soul power couldn't sense the situation inside. Inside the secret pavilion sat 9 people. Apart from the yellow-robed woman and the twin brothers, there were 2 young men, 1 middle-aged woman, 2 middle-aged men, and 1 old man. Sitting in the main seat was a middle-aged man. His face was bronze, and his skin had a metallic texture. His eyes were shining brightly like 2 shining black gems, more black than white. What's going on? Can a peak late sea of Soul Realm warrior join our team? Don't you think he'll drag us down? The middle-aged woman with a mean expression muttered. Hee kid, you've come to the wrong door. One of the twin brothers grinned. The 2 youths had different expressions. One had a sneer on his face, while the other was expressionless. His eyelids were drooping, as if he didn't care about anything. Meanwhile, the yellow-faced man with a lustful gaze was releasing his soul power without the slightest scruple, sweeping across Yi Chen as if he wanted to humiliate him. On the other hand, the tanned man and the yellow-robed woman didn't make a sound, calmly observing the situation. Humph! Yi Chen lightly snorted and counterattacked with his soul power. The yellow-faced middle-aged man felt his soul tremble, and his body went out of control. What shocked him was that Yi Chen's soul power seemed to carry a cutting intent, as if it was cutting into his soul. The feeling of being like a fish on a chopping board was not pleasant. Seeing that it was the yellow-faced man who was at a disadvantage, the others' gazes toward Yi Chen couldn't help but change. This yellow-faced man was a half-step king after all, and his soul power wouldn't be weak. Moreover, he had formed a soul membrane. Not many here could make him suffer a loss using soul power. Thus, they all inwardly looked at Yi Chen a bit more highly, and their attitudes were somewhat restrained, at least on the surface. You 2, please sit. The tanned man retracted his strange expression and indifferently said as he gestured with his palm. Murong Qingqing nodded and reservedly sat down. Yi Chen's gaze swept past Lin Yuxuan, who was beside the tanned man, and calmly sat down without the slightest bit of restraint. You 2, I've already discussed with everyone here to explore some ruins, and they have all agreed. The reason I've invited you 2 is because you 2 look different from the others, and your strength is certainly not weak. As the saying goes, one more person is one more portion of strength. The tanned man hadn't paid much attention to Yi Chen at the beginning, and only wanted to invite Murong Qingqing. But now, he naturally couldn't say that. Moreover, Yi Chen didn't look as weak as he looked. The yellow-faced man, as a half-step king, had actually suffered quite a bit of loss in soul power. This spoke volumes. Yi Chen said, "Continue." The tanned man and everyone present were somewhat astonished. Between the 2, Yi Chen seemed to be the leader. Could it be that this Yi Chen really had some ability, or was it only in name? Clearing his throat, the tanned man said in a deep voice, "If you 2 agree, I'll continue. If you 2 don't agree, then please leave. For the time being, not many people know about the ruins I've discovered. This information can't be leaked." Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing exchanged a glance, then Yi Chen said in a deep voice, "We agree." "All right then." The bronze-skinned middle-aged man smiled and said, "This relic is very large. The place I found is only a part of it, but even this part is not small. This relic is the relic of the True Water Palace." True Water Palace ruins? Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing were at a loss. They'd never heard of it before. Lin Yuxuan interjected, "True Water Palace was once the strongest 4th-grade sect in this ocean region. Its strength is not something any 4th-grade sect can compare to. In its most flourishing era, it had 13 life and death kings, and its master was one of the strongest titled monarchs at that time, True Water Emperor." 13 kings. True Water Emperor. Yi Chen was inwardly startled. This True Water Palace was indeed frightening at its peak. Nowadays, which sect could have 13 life and death kings? not to mention a titled monarch, true water emperor. In ancient times, titled monarchs were genuine monarchs who could leave their marks on the emperor's scar steel. However, even the most flourishing sects would fall one day. The current true water palace was merely a pile of ruins, lying silently at the bottom of the ocean for countless years. There's something I'd like to tell everyone. This ruin is shrouded by a restriction, and for some reason, many frightening life forms have appeared inside. I've invited everyone to enter so that we can take care of each other and smoothly take away the treasures inside. The bronze-skinned burly man explained. All right, when do we leave? These kinds of ruins would usually have great weapons. So, Yi Chen did not hesitate and agreed right away. In order to avoid any accidents, and I'm also afraid that someone might leak the news, we'll leave the moment we leave the secret pavilion. Does anyone have any objections? The tan man's gaze swept the surroundings and asked, What objections can we have? It doesn't matter when we leave. The twin brothers grinned. Me neither. The cold-faced youngster nodded. The others naturally didn't have any objections. Wasn't the reason they came to Richlight Oceanspan to try their luck and obtain some treasures? All right, there's no rush for now. Everyone, rest for a while. After drinking some tea, we'll leave together. The tan man didn't intend to invite anyone anymore. He nodded in satisfaction and lightly shook the bell in the secret pavilion, ordering people to bring tea and pastries. After drinking tea and eating some pastries, the tanned man stood up and said, Let's go. Chapter 783. Chaotic demonic ocean was far enough from true spirit continent, but Richlight Oceanspan was even farther. It was already in the depths of the Southern Ocean. There were few people here, but many oceanic beasts were plentiful. However, due to the vile environment, the oceanic beasts were cruel, bloodthirsty, and had low intelligence. The group of 11 flew above the ocean, encountering the attacks of oceanic beasts and flying demonic beasts from time to time. Moreover, they came in large groups, numbering in the thousands and tens of thousands. The group was quite annoyed and their speed kept decreasing, wasting a lot of time. Only after 3 days did they reach their destination. The bronze-skinned man was called Jin Wanshuang, an old man of Richlight Oceanspan. Relying on his good luck and ability to judge the situation, he had obtained a lot of treasures. With these treasures, as well as thousands of extreme battles, his strength had long since reached the profound realm of half-step kings. Although few people had seen him fight and didn't know his exact strength, no one dared to look down on him. After dozens of years, those old men of Richlight Oceanspan had either died or left. Only he was alive and well. Standing at the front of the team, Jin Wanshuang turned around and said, The ruins are 300,000 meters below the seabed. Remember, follow me later. There is a huge water array around the ruins. Although it's badly damaged, the slightest carelessness will cause you to be attacked by it. I'm sure everyone knows what will happen if you cause too much of a commotion 300,000 meters below the seabed. We're naturally aware of this. We'll follow you. The only old man in the group spoke for the first time. His face was full of wrinkles, showing the traces of time and the vicissitudes of life. All right, let's go. Jin Wanshuang's figure flickered, turning into a golden rainbow and shooting down. Swish, swish, swish. Yi Chen and the others followed behind him, not leaving even an inch behind. 300,000 meters was an extremely dangerous depth for ordinary Sea of Soul Realm expert. The water pressure here was unimaginably powerful. As long as there was a hole in the protective Zhen Yuan, one would instantly be squeezed into a meatball. Even if a half-step king retracted his protective Zhen Yuan, his life would still be in danger. However, apart from Yi Chen, the rest were all half-step kings. As long as they were a bit careful and didn't get careless, the chances of something happening were very low. Soon, everyone arrived at a depth of 300,000 meters. The huge water pressure caused their speed to become slower and slower. They were not even 1% of their speed on land. The bottom of the deep sea wasn't pitch black. There were many glowing things here, including glowing crystal corals and small glowing creatures. There was a kind of creature with a shining tail and a perfectly round body the size of a thumb. It looked extremely hard, like a solid metal ball. About dozens of meters above the seabed, everyone was wrapped in a colorful protective layer of Zhen Yuan, slowly swimming forward. After a cup of tea's worth of time, Jin Wanshuang's voice came through the vibration of his Zhen Yuan. "We're here. This is the outer area of the ruins, covered by the water element formation. Everyone, be careful and follow me." Everyone nodded and looked ahead. In the dim seabed, there were many white jade stone pillars that were dozens of meters tall. The surface of the stone pillars was carved with complicated water patterns. From time to time, there would be blue flowing lights following the traces of the water patterns, attracting many spherical creatures to come closer. Jin Wanshuang waved his hand and began swimming toward the stone pillars. No one knew how big the stone pillars were. If it weren't for Jin Wanshuang leading the way, they might have gotten lost in the stone pillars and couldn't find their way out. It should be known that the reason why a formation was called a formation was that it wouldn't have too many flaws. For example, the seemingly safest place, the sky, might actually be the most dangerous. Therefore, no one swam to the top of the white jade stone pillars. They all maintained a height of dozens of meters. Many of these white jade stone pillars have already been broken or collapsed. If we follow the broken pillars, the formation won't be triggered. Yi Chen finally saw through it. No matter how big the stone pillars were, there was still a limit. Everyone followed behind Jin Wanshuang, turning here and there, sometimes taking a big circle. Finally, they passed through the entire stone pillar group and arrived in front of a dilapidated but exceptionally grand building complex. The tallest building was over 1,000 meters tall, standing at the bottom of the ocean. The shortest was an arched gate at the front, which was at least 70 to 80 meters tall. It was clearly not Jin Wanshuang's first time here. He explained, "This is the ruin I've found. However, I've only explored less than 1/10 of it, and this arched door is the only entrance. We need to break the restrictions on this door to enter." "That's easy. Let us do it." The two brothers walked up. The older one took out a human-sized axe, while the younger one took out 2 machetes. Jin Wanshuang didn't object. The restriction on the arched gate wasn't that high-leveled. With the two's strength, it was more than enough to break it. If they couldn't, then there was no point in entering the ruin. It was too dangerous. The two brothers roared at the same time. The axe and machetes slashed toward the arched gate. Their speed was so fast that even at the seabed, it was enough to raise everyone's eyebrows. Gotcha! The arched gate flickered and a huge hole appeared. "Come, let's go in." Jin Wanshuang led the group and entered through the hole. The moment everyone entered, the hole had already been repaired. The light was withdrawn, and there was nothing strange about it from the outside. The ruin was very dilapidated. The buildings were all over the place, and there were some places where the ground had caved in. Black chi was surging inside, and it was immeasurably deep. A single glance would make one dizzy. No one knew what had happened here. Yi Chen used his soul power to sense it and vaguely felt a trace of evil aura. The moment his soul power touched this aura, an illusion and a bad omen immediately appeared in his mind. It was a bit like a curse. This place is indeed an ominous place. Yi Chen transmitted his Zhen Yuan to Murong Qingqing, telling her to be on guard at all times. I also felt it. Just now, when I used my demonic eyes to observe, I seemed to have seen a blurry shadow flash through the buildings. Murong Qingqing replied, "Since we're already here, we'll just deal with it." Yi Chen was not the kind of person who was overly worried. Following the passageway, the group walked here and there, and soon reached the depths of the building complex, arriving in front of a winding corridor. The carvings on the pillars on both sides of the corridor were very strange. They were all bronze-armored warriors. No one knew if it was for the sake of realism or something, but the weapons of the bronze-armored warriors were forcibly inserted into the pillars. Holding the weapons in their hands, the postures were all different. "I've never been here before." Jin Wanchuang only said one sentence before walking in front. "They're just decorations." The twin brothers were the most unscrupulous, touching here and there. They even wanted to pull out the weapons of the bronze-armored warriors, not knowing the meaning of caution. The corridor was rather long, and unknowingly, the group arrived at the center. Crack! A faint sound was heard. "What's that sound?" The middle-aged woman stopped. "Watch out!" The group behind her raised their heads and saw that the bronze-armored warrior on the pillar to the right of the middle-aged woman had opened its eyes, shooting out a red light. Rumble! The bronze-armored warrior jumped down and slashed at the middle-aged woman's head with its saber. This scene happened too quickly. The bronze-armored warrior seemed to have broken through the limits of space and appeared above the middle-aged woman. Yi Chen could clearly see that the bronze-armored warrior and the pillar were not embedded, but connected by an array. Therefore, after the bronze-armored warrior jumped down, the pillar still had its carvings, but they were not as realistic as before. The middle-aged woman was not a small character. She was very, very powerful. Apart from Thunder Spirit King and Blackwater Alliance's Wang Tai, Yi Chen had never seen anyone stronger than her. Of course, that was in the past. After arriving at Foursquare Island, Yi Chen had already discarded his previous understanding. There were too many half-step kings on the island, and there were also many half-step kings with unfathomable depth. Among the 11 present, which one of them was simple? If they were to fall out, Yi Chen wouldn't dare to look down on any one of them. Under life and death realm, he was far from being invincible. In the blink of an eye, the middle-aged woman's body faintly swayed, leaving behind a lifelike afterimage. The bronze-armored warrior slashed down, cleaving the afterimage into two and dispersing it. "You dare to have designs on this old lady." The middle-aged woman's temperament was unkind. She coiled her finger, and a black thread coiled around the bronze-armored warrior's neck. With a forceful pull, a head was torn off. "Let's go." Jin Wanchuang was very experienced. With a single glance, he could tell that the bronze-armored warrior's strength was equivalent to an ordinary half-step king. The middle-aged woman didn't die because of her superior strength. However, the number of bronze-armored warriors in the corridor was not just a few dozen, but several hundred. 11 against several hundred bronze-armored warriors was not an easy task. "Ka ka ka ka." Just as Jin Wanchuang's voice faded, the bronze-armored warriors on the corridor revived one after another, crowding the corridor so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Clang! Yi Chen waved his sword and sent a bronze-armored warrior flying. The opponent's bronze armor was extremely sturdy, and only a sword mark was left on it. It seemed that only the exposed parts of the armor were the weak points, such as the neck, eyes, and face. "Let's go!" Fuck! So many. The group didn't have the time to face the bronze-armored warriors head-on. They crazily ran, blowing away the bronze-armored warriors, blocking their way one after another, opening up a path for only one person. At this moment, everyone's style was revealed. Jin Wanchuang's attacks were simple and unadorned. They were not magnificent, but they were extremely effective. They were just right, not wasting the slightest bit of strength. The experienced old man was not inferior to Jin Wanchuang. His withered palms seemed slow but were actually fast. The bronze-armored warriors on both sides were squeezed together, unable to exert their strength. Although the yellow-faced man had suffered a loss at the hands of Yi Chen, he wasn't weak either. Holding a shield in one hand and a spear in the other, his footsteps were steady as he borrowed strength to counterattack. The cold-faced youngster was a sword artist just like Yi Chen. His sword speed was extremely fast, and the bronze-armored warriors pouncing at him were all blown away by his sword chi, unable to climb back up for a long time. On the other hand, Lin Yuxuan seemed to be somewhat inexperienced. His moves were wide and powerful, and the bronze-armored warriors that were hit by him fell off one after another. Although it seemed like he was unstoppable, doing so in this kind of dangerous place was a bit too much of a waste of Jin Yuan. The yellow-robed lady was indeed one of the people that Yi Chen couldn't see through. From the beginning to the end, she hadn't made a single move, and those bronze-armored warriors couldn't even touch her clothes. Chapter 784. In addition to these people, there were also two people in the crowd who were even more unscrupulous than Lin Yuxuan. They were the twin brothers. The two of them carried a giant axe and a machete as they charged forward. How could the charging bronze-armored warriors resist the two wolf-like people? They were knocked over and lost their footing, swaying left and right. However, they were different from Lin Yuxuan. These two mostly relied on brute force and did not use much Jin Yuan. Although they looked impressive, their consumption was pitiful. As for the middle-aged woman, she found it difficult to deal with so many bronze-armored warriors. It could be seen that she walked the path of cunning and sinister. 1 against 1, 1 against 2. It was much easier for her to deal with them than ordinary people, but once the numbers reached a certain level, she would find it difficult to deal with them. Fortunately, her movement techniques were quite good, and she could always avoid the bronze-armored warriors' attacks at critical moments and follow closely behind the group. Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing were also at the back of the group. In front of them were the twin brothers, and behind them was the middle-aged woman. Murong Qingqing relied on speed to make a living. Speed was her talent, so she was naturally very calm. Clang, 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 clang. Yi Chen strolled leisurely. The thunder disaster sword in his hand seemed slow but was actually fast. Every time it was swung, it was just right when the warriors were about to attack. So, it looked like they were coming to him on their own. It was orderly and pleasing to the eye. Before, the middle-aged woman had looked down on Yi Chen a bit, thinking that he had no other use besides his soul power. But now, she did not think that way anymore. Among the 11 people, Yi Chen was the most relaxed. It was not that he was the strongest, but his perception and timing were the best. This brat does have some skills. He is not that easy to deal with. If there are any disputes in the future, I will wait and see. Living at their level, it was very important to judge the situation. Arguing with someone they had no confidence in dealing with was not a rational and stupid thing to do. The bronze-armored warriors in the corridor were like a tide, while the group was like an iron boat on the tide, cutting through the waves and pressing forward. After about the time it took to drink half a cup of tea, everyone safely passed through the corridor. Turning around, they saw that all the bronze-armored warriors were frozen in place. Then, with a flash of light, they merged into the pillars on both sides of the corridor, becoming one with the sculptures. "Is everyone all right?" Jin Wanshuang let out a breath and asked after scanning the surroundings. "Not bad, let's continue forward." The bronze-armored warriors were nothing more than an appetizer for them. Any one of them would be an invincible figure under life and death realm. How could they be defeated by a group of mindless scrap metal? "That's good." Jin Wanshuang continued to lead the way. He also believed that these things wouldn't be too troublesome. When he invited people, he had thought it through. Of course, there were many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the tea-house, so he had only invited a portion of them. After passing through the corridor, everyone came to a central hall. This hall was equivalent to an aisle rest area. There were some rest rooms on both sides, but there was nothing else. Everyone left the hall and directly walked out of the hall through the passage in front. As soon as they exited the hall, everyone suddenly stopped. What entered his eyes was a large forest that was divided into two. The small path in the middle was the only path that led to the other side. In the forest, there were countless red lights that flickered as if there were countless fireflies dancing in it. It was incomparably gorgeous. Without saying anything, Jin Wanshuang took a deep breath and took a step forward. The secluded path was covered in layers of mist and immeasurably deep. The trees on both sides of the path were lush and quiet, carrying a trace of deathly stillness. "So beautiful! A firefly flew down from a nearby tree and was about to perch on the shoulder of the younger twin brother. It shone as brightly as a bean. The younger twin was attracted by the firefly and reached out to grab it. Bang! An intense flame exploded, and a powerful chi wave blew the surrounding 10 people off balance, making it hard for them to open their eyes. Meanwhile, the younger twin's entire right hand was scorched black, emitting green smoke. Little brother! The older twin was startled. Motherfucker, this firefly can even explode! The younger twin turned his head and revealed a smile toward the older brother. His scorched right arm lightly shook, and the ashes of his clothes fell down, revealing the skin underneath. What a powerful body! Yi Chen's eyes squinted. The might of a firefly's explosion could only be described as frightening, not any weaker than a full-powered attack of a normal half-step king. Yet, the younger twin was still fine even after holding it. It was easy to imagine the extent of his body's defense. If it were someone else, their arm would definitely be destroyed. This is a self-exploding firebug. The elder opened his eyes wide and said word by word. Self-exploding firebug? The others looked at him with a confused expression. A trace of fear appeared on the elder's face. These bugs have existed since ancient times, but they are extinct now. The explosion of one self-exploding firebug will attract all the others. This is the fire forest, a place where powerful warriors burn. If you want to live, leave this place as soon as possible. Leave? Where to run? Everyone looked ahead and then back. Both sides were covered in layers of mist, making it hard to advance or retreat. If they went forward, they wouldn't know where the end was, and if they retreated, the distance was not short either. Moreover, they had come here for treasures, so there was no reason to retreat. However, compared to their lives, retreating did not seem shameful. Forward! Jin Wanchuang's face was firm as he led the way. Follow him. At this moment, there was only unity. However, when they saw countless light dots coming through the mist, everyone stopped and looked at each other in dismay. They're coming. There are some on the left and right as well. Are they forcing us to retreat? Whoosh! As everyone discussed, the twin brothers shot out an axe light and 2 blade lights. The axe light and blade light were as fast as lightning, slashing into the depths of the mist. Pung 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 pung, continuous explosions resounded, and the dazzling flame light illuminated the entire fire forest. The mist on the path was also swept away by the shockwave, leaving no obstacles behind. Everyone looked forward and could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. They could not see the end of the line. What they saw was an overwhelming number of self-detonating fireworms. Among them, there were some fist-sized self-detonating fireworms with blue light flashing on their tails. On the other hand, although there were a lot of them, they were sparse, not even 1% of the ones at the front. The ones on the left and right sides were a bit more than the ones at the back. Jin Wanchuang turned his head and said, "This is the only way. Either we go forward or we go back. If we go back, then this ruin will have nothing to do with him, unless we can find a way to deal with these bugs. Since we came here together, we will naturally advance and retreat together. Now let's vote. Those who support moving forward, take 1 step forward, and those who support moving back, take 1 step back." The bugs were getting closer and closer, flying up and down. They didn't have much time left. Forward. The cold-looking youngster was the first to vote as he took a step forward. I also agreed to move forward. The yellow-robed lady was the second. Agreed. Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing moved forward at the same time. In the end, only the elder and the middle-aged lady didn't vote. Lin Yuxuan hesitated a bit, but still took a step forward. 9 against 2. Whether we vote or not, it is meaningless. The elder took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Then, let's go forward. The middle-aged lady's face was bitter. She couldn't go back alone. The treasure was too tempting, and she would definitely regret it when she went back. At this moment, the elder said again, "The bugs will be attracted by blood chi. Only by approaching them will they come over. We have to be fast, and don't try to kill them. On the other hand, if the blood chi is reserved, it won't come near. The yellow-robed lady suddenly said. The elder said bitterly, how could it be that easy? Reserved blood chi is useless against the bugs. As long as you are still alive, they will be able to sense your blood chi. The yellow-robed lady smiled without replying. Could she be able to do that? Yi Chen sensed a non-committal expression flash past the yellow-robed lady's face, which made him suspicious. All right, since everyone has agreed, then from now on, don't think about anything else. Take out all the things that can be used for defense. Don't be afraid of wasting them. Jin Wanshuang activated his defensive armor. He didn't carry any weapons in his hands, but 2 shields, one big and one small. The big one was as tall as a human, while the small one was only 1 meter. The others also had a lot of stock. Just like Jin Wanshuang, they all held shields and activated their defensive armors. They were all armed to the teeth, looking like warriors who were about to enter the battlefield. Charge! The group of 11 people flew forward at their fastest speed. Due to the invisible power in the ruins, their speed was only 1% of their speed on land. The self-exploding flaming bugs were a kind of fierce bug that was extremely sensitive to blood chi. Everyone revolved their Zhenyuan, causing their blood chi to become even more exuberant. Without a doubt, the self-exploding flaming bugs were even more attractive to them. One by one, they flew over and then developed into groups. As far as the eye could see, the sky was filled with light spots. Boom, 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 flames shrouded everyone, along with a series of metal exploding sounds. It was the sound of the bugs hitting the metal shield. Go! The upper rank shield in his hand was destroyed. Yi Chen shook his Zhenyuan, and the shield flew out along with a wave of fireflies. He then took out another shield, and the one that he had thrown away disappeared into the distance with a ball of flame. The speed at which the shields were being destroyed was too fast. Upper-grade shields would not be able to last for a long time, and only the semi-extreme grade shields could slightly withstand this kind of explosion. Unfortunately, shields were one of the rarer artifacts, and everyone only had 1 or 2 semi-extreme grade shields on them. At most, they would take out one, since no one would use all of their semi-extreme grade shields on the exploding firebug. Therefore, the upper-grade shields had become the fastest consumable. After dozens of breaths, everyone had already used up dozens of shields, which was a horrifying sight to behold. Pung! All of a sudden, a 10 times louder sound exploded, and the group's formation was torn apart. Yi Chen looked over. Unknowingly, those fist-sized fireflies with their tails flickering with blue light had also joined the attack. Their self-detonation power was 10 times that of ordinary fireflies. Chapter 785. After splitting up, the crowd did not dare to be careless. Not only did they not slow down, they even activated their secret arts, increasing their speed drastically. Of course, no one dared to collide with the blue fireflies. They were all trying their best to avoid them. Even if they could not avoid them, they would still send out an attack to take them down. As time went by, everyone began to understand the terror of the exploding firebugs more and more. Normal attacks were useless against the exploding firebug. There seemed to be an invisible membrane around their bodies, which had the effect of neutralizing chi power. Only extremely condensed attacks could hit the exploding firebugs from a distance and make them explode. On the other hand, the exploding firebugs could actually ignore their protective Zhen-Yuan to a certain extent. If it were not for the shields in their hands, they would have already been blown to pieces. Dark Force Field. Dozens of blue fireflies flew over from Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing's side. The ordinary fireflies numbered in the thousands, and their speed was extremely fast. Murong Qingqing's expression turned serious. Her body suddenly flickered with purple-black electric arcs. As the electric arcs appeared, a twisting force field spread out, enveloping the fireflies in the surroundings. Buzz! All the fireflies that approached were bounced off, unable to move an inch closer. When Murong Qingqing was still at clasping Yuan realm, she had already mastered the Sky Demon force field. But now, the Sky Demon force field had naturally been eliminated. According to the characteristics of the Sky Demon Great Art, Murong Qingqing had researched the Dark Force field based on the Dark Profound. Compared to the Sky Demon force field, the Dark Force field had reached a whole new level. It was like comparing the magnetic field of a human body to the magnetic field of a star. With the protection of the Dark Force field, Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing immediately felt a lot more relaxed. I didn't expect the force field to be so useful at this moment. Yi Chen sighed. Murong Qingqing's dark force field had yet to reach a profound level. Using it to deal with a half-step king of the same level, it was naturally insufficient and ineffective. However, it was more than enough to deal with the self-detonating flaming bug. This was like the saying, everything has its counter. Murong Qingqing said, previously, I didn't understand the characteristics of the self-detonating fireflies. That's why I tried using the darkness force field to block them. The effect is better than I expected. Yi Chen smiled and said, with the darkness force field, we can come and go as we please. The sudden silence on their side naturally aroused the suspicions of the others. Immediately, 8 or 9 soul forces scanned over. The middle-aged woman's eyes lit up and a look of ecstasy flashed across her face. Among everyone here, she was the one in the most sorry state. The successive explosions had already caused her to suffer considerable internal injuries. If it wasn't for her profound cultivation and several secret techniques that could lock her injuries and prevent them from worsening, she would have long since been smashed into pieces. Even so, she also began to despair. This small path seemed to have no end, and just like the small path, there was no end to the self-exploding fireflies. They were innumerable. If this continued, she would be blown to death sooner or later. At this moment, seeing that Murong Qingqing had a secret technique to restrain the fireflies, how could she not be ecstatic? Disregarding everything else, the middle-aged woman urged her Zhen Yuan and turned toward Murong Qingqing's direction with her shield in hand. She wanted to seek shelter and leave this damned place. Not only the middle-aged woman, but the others also rapidly approached. Among them, there were some who were confident in passing through the small path, but they would certainly consume a lot of energy. At this moment, a shelter had suddenly appeared. Who would be stupid enough to not accept it? Buzz. The middle-aged woman was just about to approach, but unexpectedly, an invisible force field bounced her back. Normally, she could naturally break through the force field, but at this moment, this force field was her only hope. You! The middle-aged woman's face was full of grievance and anger. Miss, we are now a team, so we should help each other. How about this? I promise on behalf of them that as long as we find a treasure, not only will you be the first to choose, you will also get 10% more. How about it? Does everyone agree? Jin Wanshuang was indeed worthy of being an experienced person. At this moment, he knew that it would not be good for anyone to fall out. Moreover, before coming here, no one had thought that they would need to seek shelter. It was true that they were a team, but when there was only one person who could protect the others, it was a completely different matter. Finishing his words, Jin Wanshuang turned to the others. He believed that they would make the right choice. 10% more, but only for the first time. The twin brothers nodded, then shook their heads. All right, I have no objections. Me too. Everyone agreed. They did not know how long the small path was, and they did not dare to joke around with their lives. Let them in, Yi Chen said to Murong Qingqing. Murong Qingqing faintly nodded and opened a gap in the dark force field, letting everyone in. Pop! As soon as they entered, the fireflies followed the blood qi. However, the dark force field had already closed up, and they were bounced away. Maintaining the dark force field, Murong Qingqing led everyone and continued to advance. In fact, she did not let the middle-aged woman in at the beginning not because of her personal benefits, but because of her personal principles. If you want to come in, then come in. What do you think I am? At this moment, she could not take a single step back. She had to maintain her position, or else others would take it for granted. Although it would not cause any irreconcilable conflict, it was still a problem. The reason Yi Chen did not stop her before was because he knew why Morong Qingqing wanted to do this. Only after everyone expressed their opinions did he let Morong Qingqing open the dark force field. The length of the small path was beyond everyone's imagination. After flying for a cup of tea's worth of time, they still could not see the end. At this moment, everyone's displeasure was completely gone. Compared to the extra 10% of the treasures, they did not lose out at all. On the contrary, they had profited. This kind of length was something that no one among them could pass safely. They would have to pay some price, perhaps even their lives. Moreover, they still could not see the end. Who knew how long it would be? Jin Wanchuang also had the same thought. He smiled at Morong Qingqing and said, "Many thanks." Morong Qingqing nodded and did not say anything else. Another cup of tea's worth of time passed, and everyone finally saw the end. They all let out a breath, getting rid of their previous gloominess. Plop! At the end of the small path, everyone landed. Looking back, he saw that the fireflies were like headless flies, flying around aimlessly. It was as if they could not sense the presence of blood qi. After a while, all of the fireflies dispersed and flew into the blazing forest, disappearing without a trace. Finally made it. Jin Wanchuang laughed. Your force field is rather special. It should be driven by profound, right? The yellow-robed woman looked at Morong Qingqing with interest. Same here. Morong Qingqing said a thought-provoking sentence. The yellow-robed woman was dazed at first, then slightly surprised. She did not say anything and retreated to the side. This woman is really hard to understand, Yi Chen said. Both of them had already noticed that when they were attacked by the self-exploding flaming worms, all 10 of them were flustered. Only the yellow-clothed woman had very few self-exploding flaming worms around her. Thinking back to what the yellow-clothed woman had said before, that as long as she restrained her blood qi, she would not be attacked, it was not difficult to guess what was going on. Of course, the two did not believe that the others were fools. They must have noticed the peculiarity of the yellow-robed woman, but just did not say it out loud. The extremely dangerous small path landed behind them. In front of everyone's eyes was a golden palace. The palace's door was tightly shut, looking majestic. Open! Jin Wanchuang saw that the palace's door was not covered by any restrictions, so he slapped his palm toward the metal door. Rumble! The doors of the palace that had been closed for countless years finally opened. It was as if a door to the past had been opened to the crowd. Everyone held their breath and stared unblinkingly at the gradually opening palace, afraid to miss the most exciting moment. The palace's door finally opened completely. All of a sudden, a spirit qi light pillar shot out from the door. No one had expected such a change. None of them could dodge in time and were hit by the light pillar. However, no one was injured. Instead, they felt refreshed. This spirit qi light pillar did not have any offensive power. Once it hit them, they absorbed a lot of it. This is the spirit qi emitted by spirit stones, the middle-aged woman exclaimed. How many spirit stones are needed to gather such a dense spirit qi light pillar? That rush just now seemed to have recovered some of the Zhen Yuan I had consumed. The two brothers opened their mouths wide. Let's go in first. Jin Wanchuang took a deep breath and walked into the palace. The group followed behind him. The palace wasn't very big, and it was decorated with gold and jade. Bright crystal lamps hung from the ceiling, and the floor was paved with priceless white jade brick. In the center of the palace there was a huge formation. The formation was circular, and there were countless patterns carved in the center. It was incomparably beautiful. What attracted everyone's attention wasn't the formation, but the spirit stones that were pushed into the formation. A small mountain of spirit stones. All of them were high-grade spirit stones. Next to the small mountain of spirit stones were 7 or 8 small chests, their lids already open. Inside were all sorts of power gems of various attributes: red, blue, green, black, yellow, pink, purple, and everything else. So many upper-grade spirit stones. How many are there? And 7 to 8 chests of energy gems. Everyone's mouths were wide open, unable to say anything. The elder was the first to recover. He cleared his throat and said, "There are at least 500 million upper-grade spirit stones and 7 chests of energy gems. Not a wasted trip. Not a wasted trip." The yellow-faced man's face was full of joy. Although they had come for treasures and did not care much about upper-grade spirit stones, when they reached a certain level, no one would not be tempted. They were no exception. One must know that with their net worth, having 10 to 20 million upper spirit stones was already the limit, and this was under the premise that they did not consume much. If they bought some priceless items and participated in a few auctions, their net worth would be reduced by at least a few times. 500 million upper-grade spirit stones would be at least 40 to 50 million per person. Adding the energy gems, it would be at least 50 to 60 million. Chapter 786. What kind of concept was 50 to 60 million? It was almost equivalent to 10 half-step kings' net worth. Entering that kind of huge auction, they would be almost invincible. Of course, the premise was that there were no life and death king's parents. After all, although 50 to 60 million was a lot, it was not much for life and death king. A life and death king could casually go to a king-grade forbidden zone or find some treasures in the starry sky and sell them for hundreds of millions. But no matter what, 50 to 60 million was a shocking amount of wealth for most of the half-step kings. If they encountered it, they would definitely not let it go. Jin Wanchuang let out a breath and said, "According to what we said before, this Lady Murong will get an extra 10% of the treasures. In other words, we will first take out 10% of the upper-grade spirit stones and give it to her. The remaining 90% will be split among the 11 of us. Does anyone have any objections?" Jin Wanchuang did not let the upper-rank spirit stones go to his head. Keeping promises was the basic requirement of forming a team. If he broke his promise because of a large amount of upper-rank spirit stones, how could he expect others to keep their promises? As the leader of this team, Jin Wanchuang had the obligation to keep his promise. He did not want the team to fall apart because of him, which was not in line with his personal principles. Taking a step back, they had not even explored a third of the ruins, and there would definitely be other treasures later on. There was no need to create irreconcilable conflicts over the first batch of treasures, which was not rational at all. 10% is more than 50 million upper-rank spirit stones. The twin brother was a money grubber, so he was quite reluctant. "What? You two don't plan to keep your promise?" Jin Wanchuang's face sank. How could that be? Although 50 million is a lot, it would only be a few million after splitting it evenly. We two brothers can still see the big picture. The older twin brother grinned. "I'll listen to my brother." The younger twin brother also said, "What about you guys?" Jin Wanchuang looked at the others. "I have no objections. We've already made a deal. Why would we go back on our words? A few million upper-rank spirit stones is not enough for me to throw away my face." The middle-aged woman snorted. The most troublesome ones had been dealt with, so the others did not have any objections. "All right, let's start counting the upper-rank spirit stones." Jin Wanchuang revealed a smile and walked over. Seeing this, Yi Chen smiled faintly. A darkness force field had earned him 50 million upper spiritual stones. This was a very good deal. Unfortunately, there were times when things did not go as one wished. Just when everyone was about to count the number of upper spiritual stones, a group of people suddenly appeared at the other end of the teleportation formation. This group of people was one less than Yi Chen's group, but the aura they emitted was even stronger. And among them, The leader was the golden-haired young master of the Golden Lion clan, Shi Xiaobao. Shi Xiaobao had a tall stature, at least 2 or 3 meters tall. He had broad shoulders, a golden complexion, and a pair of golden eyes that emitted a resplendent golden radiance. But this alone was not enough to worry Yi Chen. What worried Yi Chen was that among the people standing next to Shi Xiaobao, there were a few that he could not see through back in the tea-house. For example, there was a bald fatty with a tattoo on his head, a middle-aged scholar carrying a sword, a middle-aged woman with a sinister aura, and a short old man wearing a raincoat. Apart from them, although Yi Chen had never seen the others besides Shi Xiaobao, none of them could be underestimated. They were not at all inferior to their side, and there were even 1 or 2 that surpassed them. The sudden arrival of the uninvited guests caused Jin Wanchuang's group to tense up. Each of them stared at the other side, and the atmosphere became extremely tense. "I'm afraid we're going to have a big battle," Murong Qingqing said gravely. Yi Chen nodded, "unless everyone can sit down and divide the spirit stones equally. But that's obviously impossible, so we can only have a big battle. There were too many things that happened in ancient ruins because of wealth, so it would be strange if there weren't any great battles. Moreover, everyone was already used to this sudden great battle, so they wouldn't have any complaints, nor would they cower in the slightest. Haha, so many top-grade spirit stones, the heavens are indeed blessing me," Shi Xiaobao. Walking out of the teleportation array, Shi Xiaobao ignored everyone and laughed arrogantly. His golden hair fluttered in the wind like a golden flame. "Hee, why do I see a few flies?" The bald fatty's body moved horizontally, and he stood beside Shi Xiaobao like a lump of meat, trembling incessantly. However, this person's mouth was too sharp, immediately belittling Yi Chen's group. Just like Shi Xiaobao, he did not put them in his eyes. Just slap them to death. There was also a middle-aged woman on Shi Xiaobao's side. Although she did not look like the middle-aged woman on Yi Chen's side, and her figure was a bit sturdier, her aura was a bit similar. Being stared at by her small eyes was like being stared at by a venomous snake. On this side, Jin Wanchuang did not speak, but looked at everyone else. This was not a battle of one person, but a battle of one team against another. He needed to ask everyone's opinion. If a few people did not agree, then there would be no need to fight, since they would not be able to win anyway. Those who block the way shall die. The apathetic youngster who had been silent all this while coldly looked at Shi Xiaobao's group and spat out these words. Faintly nodding, Jin Wanchuang looked at the others. "Those who obstruct us brothers from getting rich are all people who deserve to die. Killing those who deserve to die is our greatest pleasure." The twin brothers had a fiery temperament. Forcing them to retreat was worse than killing them. The younger twin brother could no longer hold back and was about to attack. His eyes were filled with savagery, and there was no trace of his previous naive appearance. When Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing were invited to the secret pavilion, Yi Chen had already seen this kind of expression. He naturally knew that these two could not be judged by their appearance. "That chick is not bad." The yellow-faced man had suffered at Yi Chen's hands. On the way, he did not look at Murong Qingqing with his lustful eyes, only sneaking a few glances. But now, his true nature was exposed. His naked eyes constantly scanned the young woman on Shi Xiaobao's right, as if he could see something he should not see through her clothes. "I'm old, and I don't have many years left." The only ancient old man sighed and said something unimportant. However, when they heard it, it sounded a bit sinister. "Leave that old woman to me." The middle-aged woman did not like the middle-aged woman in front of her. She was too ugly. Now, only the yellow-robed woman, Lin Yuxuan, and Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing remained. However, Jin Wanchuang retracted his gaze, not intending to ask anything. He couldn't see through the yellow-robed woman, but if she was a kind person, then he would have wasted his eyes. Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing. Just from their baleful auras, one could tell that they had killed many people. Especially Yi Chen, whose baleful aura was heavier than anyone else's. Jin Wanchuang admitted that he had underestimated Yi Chen. Perhaps this person was even more terrifying than he had imagined. Lin Yuxuan was young and frivolous. This kind of person was like a newborn calf that was not afraid of a tiger. Roar! The twin brothers roared savagely. Their footsteps shook the air as their killing intent and savagery filled the air. They were itching to immediately kill their way over. A bunch of ants dares to clamor in front of me? I'll tear you apart alive. Shi Xiaobao's expression was cold and sinister. Shi Xiaobao, I've seen your strength long ago, but I have yet to exchange blows with you. Today, you and I will have a decisive battle. Let's see who will have the last laugh. Lin Yuxuan stepped forward, boasting shamelessly. A youth behind Shi Xiaobao walked out. He looked even younger than Lin Yuxuan, around 20 years of age. His face was as white as powder, and he was waving a fan. Whether I'm boasting shamelessly or not, you'll know soon enough. Shi Xiaobao, do you dare to fight me? If not, then leave this place immediately. Lin Yuxuan took out his weapon, which was a halberd. Right now, the two sides were evenly matched, and both were experts. Whoever backed down first would not only lose face, but also their pride. Experts paid great attention to their pride. Only when facing an undefeatable opponent would they put it away. However, they naturally wouldn't think that their opponent was an undefeatable opponent. How could they back down? Not even half a step. A great battle was about to begin. You're not qualified to fight me. Zhao Shiwen, you go fight him. Shi Xiaobao said to the pale-faced youth waving his fan. That's for the best. The pale-faced youth walked out, standing in the center of the battlefield. He slightly raised his head, arrogantly looking at Lin Yuxuan. Then let's fight. Lin Yuxuan's face was ashen. The radiance in his eyes seemed to have materialized and shot out, as if wanting to pierce through his opponent. Courting death. The pale-faced youth suddenly counterattacked. Let's exchange blows. This wasn't a challenge, but a battle for wealth. How could he just sit and watch the winner be decided? Coincidentally, the middle-aged woman on Yi Chen's side and Shi Xiaobao's side walked out at the same time, slowly approaching each other. When they were about 100 meters away, their bodies instantly turned illusory, as if trying to confuse their opponent. However, when both of them did this, their killing intent became even more awe-inspiring. Roar! Shi Xiaobao's golden hair fluttered as he soared into the sky. Golden demonic energy burst out from his body and swept through the entire palace, causing many people's blood and qi to boil, inwardly aghast. This was a young super expert, as well as the most arrogant young master of the Golden Lion clan. He wouldn't allow others to defy him, and now, he was about to take action. Leave it to me. As the captain of Yi Chen's side, Jin Wanchuang stepped out without hesitation. With each step, the metallic luster on the surface of his body increased by a bit. After 10 steps, his entire body seemed to have turned into a metallic man, emitting a dazzling luster. You guys go and kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. Shi Xiaobao's voice rumbled as he charged at Jin Wanchuang. Boom! The battlefield boiled. Shi Xiaobao's words were akin to igniting a barrel of gunpowder. Everyone's expression turned sinister, revealing their killing intent. Chapter 787. Kill! The indifferent young man found the middle-aged scholar who was holding a longsword. Both of them were rare experts. Once they started fighting, only sword lights and sword shadows could be seen. It was impossible to see the two of them. Even the surrounding people avoided them. Swordsman was a synonym for attack power. Both of them had similar strength. When they met a swordsman, their momentum would be weaker. When two swordsmen fought with their lives on the line, it was definitely a terrifying scene. I'm old, just a bag of old bones. The weathered old man's figure flashed and floated over to the strange old man in the raincoat. When the old man in the raincoat saw an old man like him, he curled his lips and said strangely, I hate dealing with old men the most. They are old and smelly. Change one, change one. I'm afraid it won't be as you wish. The weathered old man laughed. A black cane appeared in his hand and he attacked. Damn it! The old man's body slid to the side, avoiding this attack. While he was slipping, it actually started to drizzle. The raindrops fell on his raincoat and slid down. The old man gave people the feeling of a ghost in the rain, light and evil. This old man is quite hard to deal with. The weathered old man frowned and started to fight with his opponent. The middle-aged man wanted to find the young girl, but halfway, he was stopped by the bald fatty. He was so angry that his face turned purple. He held a shield in one hand and a spear in the other, fiercely attacking the bald fatty. It seemed like there was an irreconcilable grudge between them. As for the twin brothers, they were a bit unkind. The two of them did not separate from each other. 2 against 1, they faced off against a guy wearing a mask. The elder brother's giant axe was like a falling mountain, while the younger brother's twin blades were like fire and water. The two of them cooperated seamlessly, forcing the masked guy into a difficult situation. He was mumbling something. Among the remaining 3, the yellow-clothed girl randomly found an opponent and started to fight. It seemed like she didn't have much ability. Murong Qingqing's opponent was the young girl that the middle-aged man had his eyes on. The two of them also started to fight. In the end, only Yi Chen was left. It seems like only the two of us are left. On the other side, the skinny middle-aged man who looked like a drying pole looked at Yi Chen with an ugly smile. His skinny fingers even dug his ears. Yeah. Yi Chen smiled faintly. In that case, let's not waste time. I'll let you have 3 moves first. How about it? The skinny man flicked his ear wax and smiled. All right then. Yi Chen walked over step by step with a gentle smile on his face. The two seemed to be exchanging pointers, not a life and death battle. Shoo! All of a sudden, Yi Chen took 1 step forward as his Thunder Disaster sword was taken out of its scabbard, slicing through his opponent's body. It was so fast that the air did not even have the time to vibrate. His opponent could not even feel that Yi Chen had already taken out his sword, only seeing his body shake. After doing all this, an ordinary person would have put away their sword, since the opponent was already dead. However, a sneer appeared on the corner of Yi Chen's mouth as he suddenly turned around and stabbed out. Ding! The cold light clashed and a figure flew backward. On the other hand, the skinny middle-aged man behind Yi Chen was only a clone. It was just that this clone was extremely plump. From the outside, it was impossible to tell at all. Even using soul power to scan it, one could not find anything. Moreover, at this critical moment, who would have the time to carefully plan and kill the opponent first? Who would have thought that the skinny middle-aged man had already prepared for this? It seemed like his real body was already hiding in a corner before the battle even started. Unfortunately, his opponent was Yi Chen. What kind of person was Yi Chen? His soul power was 5 times that of an ordinary person. Adding on his cautious nature, it had always been him sneak attacking others. Therefore, in Yi Chen's opinion, the skinny middle-aged man's actions were merely a show to him. He would play along with the opponent, since he wouldn't lose anything in the end. Yi Chen's counterattack startled the skinny middle-aged man. The number of people who had died under this method was too many to count. He had already lost count of how many people he had killed, apart from those whose strength was too high to assassinate. Yi Chen was the first person with a peak C of Soul Realm cultivation base to see through this move of his. How could he not be shocked? What? Didn't you say you'd let me have 3 moves? Yi Chen looked at the opponent with a sneer. The skinny middle-aged man retracted his astonishment and smiled. I only said my clone would let you have 3 moves, not my real body. You didn't hear me clearly. Is that so? How about I let you have 3 moves first? You let me have 3 moves first. The skinny middle-aged man was a bit confused. However, thinking of Yi Chen's shrewdness, he still shook his head. No, I'm afraid of being cheated by you. To be honest, I've never seen someone as shrewd as an old fox at your age. Hee hee, you're overpraising me. Let's see what I can do. Yi Chen suddenly attacked. The Thunder Disaster sword drew a transparent arc in the void, its tip pointing straight at the middle-aged man's forehead. Before the sword arrived, a sharp sword chi had already locked onto the opponent. No matter how many tricks the opponent had, it would be impossible to confuse Yi Chen. "I've found a tough one." The skinny middle-aged man inwardly cursed his bad luck. Waving his bony palm in the air, a silver-black ghost claw stretched out, covering all the vital points of Yi Chen's body. Ding 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 ding. The two fought fast against fast, and the middle-aged man's strength was not something Yi Chen dared to underestimate. Yi Chen was sure that apart from a small portion of the people present, everyone else's strength was about the same. It would be impossible to win without paying a price. Yi Chen also didn't dare to say that he could easily defeat the middle-aged man, because both sides hadn't used their killing moves yet. They were still at the stage of testing each other's strength. Rumble. 10 battles suddenly erupted in the palace. Jin Wanshuang against Shi Xiaobao, the cold-faced youngster against the middle-aged scholar, Lin Yuxuan against the pale-faced youngster, the middle-aged woman against the middle-aged woman, the weathered old man against the raincoat old man, the twin brothers against the masked man, the yellow-robed woman against the curly-bearded man, Murong Qingqing against the young woman, and Yi Chen against the skinny middle-aged man. The 10 battles were all spread out, each occupying an area. The entire palace had turned into a battlefield. Only the upper-rank spirit stones in the center of the palace, which was enveloped by a spirit array, did not erupt. Fortunately, there was a spirit array there. Otherwise, the superimposed chi strength would inevitably destroy all 500 million upper-rank spirit stones, leaving nothing behind. Apart from this, the palace itself was also protected by a restriction. Therefore, no matter how big the commotion was, it couldn't shake the palace. Whenever someone's attack landed on the palace walls, it would be absorbed by a layer of light without any sound or influence. The battles were too bitter, and everyone was fighting with their lives on the line. This was different from the previous battles. Among the 10 battles, which one of them wasn't concealing their strength? Each of them was a rare powerhouse under life and death realm with countless killing moves and trump cards? Of course, the most magnificent battle was naturally between Jin Wanshuang and Shi Xiaobao. Both of them were at the top of their respective squads. At this moment, they were no longer holding back, displaying everything they had learned and attacking each other with all their might. Lion King Claw. Shi Xiaobao furiously roared. His right hand turned into a huge lion claw and fiercely struck at Jin Wanshuang. The energy carried by the claw pierced through metal and stone, causing space to distort. Clang! Jin Wanshuang didn't hold back. He extended his palm and clenched it into a fist. This fist was shining with a silvery radiance, as if it was forged from silver. However, no one would think of it as silver, because this fist was countless times harder than silver. Even diamond would not be able to compare to it. Amidst a loud sound, Jin Wanshuang's fist shattered the Lion King claw and kicked at Shi Xiaobao's head. Courting death. Shi Xiaobao stretched out his left hand and grabbed Jin Wanshuang's ankle. Exerting strength in his arm, he lifted Jin Wanshuang and spun him several times in the air. An ordinary person would have long since become dizzy and lose all their battle strength, let alone the ability to counterattack. However, Jin Wanshuang was not an ordinary person. As if he couldn't feel the spinning, his fists repeatedly struck Shi Xiaobao's protective Jinyuan, causing his blood and qi to boil. Scram! Shi Xiaobao furiously roared and threw Jin Wanshuang. With a slap, Jin Wanshuang's feet stomped on the palace wall and borrowed the rebound force to attack Shi Xiaobao again. His strength and reaction speed were truly frightening. Roar! Shi Xiaobao couldn't endure this kind of attack and finally reverted to his true form. The air suddenly distorted, and a 12-meter-long golden lion appeared in front of everyone. This golden lion had 4 pillar-like limbs and sharp claws. Its golden mane was draped behind its head, shining with a golden radiance as if it was forged from gold. Compared to the silver on Jin Wanchuang's body, the two colors were distinct. One gold, one silver. Roar! Shi Xiaobao roared again and suddenly leaped up, attacking Jin Wanchuang. His huge body allowed him to take countless steps forward with a single step. With a flicker, he appeared above Jin Wanchuang's head and ruthlessly stomped down with the pressure of Mount Tai. Dream on! Jin Wanchuang crossed his arms above his head, blocking the claws. Creak! The two were in a deadlock. After reverting to his true form, Shi Xiaobao became more and more violent. How could he tolerate such a situation? With a slight movement of his right claw, his huge head reached down and bit at Jin Wanchuang's head. If he was bitten, it wouldn't be as simple as a light injury. He would definitely be split in two. However, Jin Wanchuang didn't only have this much ability. His eyes turned silver, and his hair stood up like a silver hedgehog. Resisting the pressure, he clenched his left fist and punched at one of Shi Xiaobao's huge teeth, producing an intense sound of metal colliding. Shi Xiaobao was forced back a step, and cracks appeared on his teeth. He couldn't help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. This was the first time he had suffered a loss. Apart from Shi Xiaobao and Jin Wanchuang's side, the others were also in a miserable state. Although they weren't as majestic as this place, they were exceptionally murderous. The cold-faced youngster and the middle-aged scholar had already exchanged hundreds of moves. In these hundreds of moves, both sides had suffered a small loss. After all, in a fight between sword artists, the moment they saw a flaw, they would strike it. Using speed to fight speed, the slightest flaw would be fatal. The cold-faced youngster's shoulder was struck by a sword, and there was a bloody mark on his chest. On the other hand, the middle-aged scholar's hair was disheveled, and his abdomen and leg were both struck by a sword. The two were evenly matched, and it seemed like they didn't know each other well. It was still too early to decide the victor. However, in a fight between the same level, the victor could only be decided in the later stages. Only then would the small advantages and disadvantages be magnified to the point that they couldn't be ignored. However, as time passed, some people began to fall into a disadvantageous position. The first to fall into a disadvantageous position was the yellow-faced man. His opponent was a bald fatty with a tattoo on his head. This fatty was extremely hard to deal with. Just like the fat on his body, the Zhen Yuan he had cultivated was extremely slippery. When the spear stabbed forward, it was soft but not strong. The yellow-faced man became more and more powerless, and many bloody marks appeared on his body. He was suppressed to the point where he couldn't even raise his head. Dying by my hands? It's not bad to say it out loud. The bald fatty seemed to be handling the situation with ease. Up until now, it seemed he hadn't used his full strength. His palms were the size of palms, and as they slammed out, a dense mass of thick vibrational energy could be felt. The yellow-faced man had suffered from this vibrational energy, and every time they exchanged blows, he could feel minute injuries appearing in his body. Over time, these minute injuries would accumulate, and it would be terrifying. Die! The yellow-faced man suddenly threw out the shield in his hand, slashing at the bald fatty's head while blocking the latter's vision. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the yellow-faced man suddenly leaped up, and his body split into three. The three of them attacked at the same time, creating layers of spear shadows. Unexpectedly, the bald fatty's movement technique was 10 times better than what the yellow-faced man had imagined. This kind of movement technique, let alone a fatty, even a person as light as a swallow might not be able to display it so elegantly. However, the bald fatty gave people a feeling of elegance. His figure flashed, and the bald fatty dodged the shield, suddenly appearing below the yellow-faced man. His eyes narrowed, and his small eyes couldn't be seen anymore as he pushed out both hands. The yellow-faced man had split into 3 figures, and they had a confusing effect. The bald fatty indeed couldn't see through them, so he pushed out 2 palms. Out of the 3, 2 hit. The success rate was higher than 50%. If he didn't hit, then it could only be said that the yellow-faced man's luck was too good. In fact, the yellow-faced man's luck wasn't that good. Out of the 2 figures that were hit, one was his real body. Puff! The bald fatty's fleshy palm was plump and strangely powerful. The yellow-faced man was hit in the crotch, and his whole body was thrown high into the air. His lower part was smashed into a pile, and his stomach was pierced through. Due to the powerful pressure, the yellow-faced man's blood didn't come from his mouth, but from the top of his head. His head suddenly exploded, turning into a bloody mist. At this point, Yi Chen's side had lost 1 person. This wasn't the end. The battle between the middle-aged woman and the middle-aged woman also ended. The one who died was the middle-aged woman on Yi Chen's side. I've roamed the Jianghu for so many years, but this is the first time I've met someone more sinister than me. I deserve to die. The middle-aged woman stood upright on the ground. Her back was full of silver needles, and the real fatal wounds were the 2 silver needles on the soles of her feet. It turned out that the middle-aged woman on Shi Xiaobao's side had placed the silver needles on the ground from time to time during the battle, waiting for her opponent to step on them. Such a small trick couldn't have been hidden from the middle-aged woman on Yi Chen's side. However, she had already refined the silver needles into her body, forcing them out from the soles of her feet and hiding them in the ground around her. Therefore, the one who lost this battle wasn't because they were weak, but because they weren't as sinister as the other side. They hadn't expected that the other side would use such an unimaginable trick. In the blink of an eye, Yi Chen's side lost 2 people. In terms of numbers, the balance shifted towards Shi Xiaobao's side. The strength of both sides was about the same, and Yi Chen's side seemed a bit weaker. Losing 2 people at once was simply a devastating disaster. It was like a tug-of-war. Both sides were evenly matched, but as long as the other side exerted a little more strength, it would lead to an overwhelming victory. Chapter 788. You 2 brothers should be barbarians, right? I've never fought with such a powerful half-step barbarian king. Let's see if your brute force is stronger or if my palm energy is stronger. The bald fatty swept his gaze, and fell on the twin brothers who were besieging the masked man. Both of them were powerful half-step kings. 2 against 1, even if the masked man's strength reached the heavens, he was still beaten to the point of spurting out blood. If not for the fact that the 2 brothers had too few variations in their moves, the masked man would have long since been chopped into meat paste. With his body as light as a swallow, the bald fatty floated to the masked man's side and extended his chubby palm, blocking the elder brother's axe. The elder brother was called Daer Xiong, and the younger brother was Daer Ba. In the deep-sea barbarian race, they were known as the Daer brothers. They were the most famous geniuses of the race. Unable to bear the rules of the barbarian race, the 2 brothers had come out to roam the world. Relying on their powerful defense and combined strength, they had been doing very well and had never suffered a loss. Seeing a fat guy like a big white pig running over and stopping the 2 brothers from joining hands, Daer Xiong was enraged. Wielding the axe with one hand, he doubled his strength. Creak! The pressure on the bald fatty increased sharply. His knees slightly softened, and the ground beneath his feet vibrated, producing a sound of metal twisting. Good heavens! His strength is close to 1,000,000 Jin. The bald fatty's eyes widened as blue veins popped out on his forehead. With a roar, he inflated like a balloon and sent Daer Xiong flying. Brother! Daer Ba turned to look at Daer Xiong. Daer Xiong waved his hand and said, I'll leave the masked man to you. I'll deal with this big white pig. Remember, don't ruin the reputation of us Daer brothers. Of course not. My blood is boiling. Daer Ba turned his head and looked at the masked man with a different gaze. His eyes were like 2 flames, burning fiercely as a wild power gradually awakened in his body. Fuck! Madman! The masked man was in a miserable state. These two brothers had incomparably powerful fleshly bodies, no different from monsters. Perhaps even body-refining experts of the same level would be somewhat inferior to them. Seems like I have to use 20% of my strength. A dangerous light flashed in the masked man's eyes. On this side, the bald fatty helped the masked man share some of the pressure. On the other side, the middle-aged woman went to help the curly-bearded man deal with the yellow-clothed woman. She could see that the yellow-clothed woman's strength was unfathomable, and the curly-bearded man was most likely not her opponent. If the other party got serious, the curly-bearded man would be finished. As for Sher Xiaobao, the middle-aged scholar, and the raincoat old man, they didn't need her help. The others' opponents weren't very strong, so she didn't bother to consider them. Oh, another one. Are you trying to bully me with numbers? The yellow-robed woman lightly patted with her slender palm. Not only was the curly-bearded man's fierce strength neutralized, but his body was also pushed back by a gentle force, causing him to stagger. With a faint smile, the yellow-robed woman drew a circle in the air with her left hand, and all the silver needles were fixed there. Soft, profound meaning. The middle-aged woman walked over. Not bad. You've also comprehended the soft ultimacy, right? The woman in yellow said. The middle-aged woman didn't answer directly. She said to the curly-bearded man, "You've comprehended the profound of toughness, while I've comprehended the profound of gentleness. Let's work together to deal with her." All right. The curly-bearded man didn't hesitate at all. The threat that the yellow-robed woman gave him was too great. Her aura was like maggots in one's bones. Once touched, it would be hard to get rid of. He didn't know how much power she had used, but he himself had already used 90% of his power. The reason why he didn't use his full power was because if his power increased, the opponent's power would also increase. He didn't dare to use all of his power. Since the middle-aged woman proposed to work together, he naturally wouldn't refuse. The two of them stood on the left and right, vaguely surrounding the yellow-robed woman. The yellow-robed woman ignored them and said with a smile, "It seems like, if I don't use some of my true power, I'll be beaten to death by you two. Bring it on." The middle-aged woman circulated her Zhen Yuan and focused her mind. Through her body, one could see that inside her body, there were countless silver needles following her meridians to her fingertips, soles of her feet, knees, and elbows. It was as if her body was a weapon that could shoot out silver needles from anywhere and kill people. Compared to the hidden killing intent here, the battle on the other side was much fiercer. The two sides were Lin Yuxuan and the pale-faced youngster. Since Lin Yuxuan dared to call himself Sher Xiaobao, he naturally had some ability. The bronze halberd in his hand danced like an azure dragon baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. The azure dragons roared and released a majestic aura that surrounded the pale-faced youngster. The pale-faced youngster's fighting style was similar to his appearance, leaning towards the feminine side. However, his feminine side was different from the yellow-robed woman's. The yellow-robed woman's feminine side gave off a feeling of hidden needles, while the pale-faced youngster's feminine side was more domineering. Waving his fan, the pale-faced youngster fanned away the azure dragon halberd lights. At the same time, his left hand wasn't idle either, occasionally giving Lin Yuxuan a sneak attack. His palm energy was unceasing, and the after-effects were strangely strong. Water-like ripples spread out in the void, affecting Lin Yuxuan's follow-up movements. Soaring dragon breaking water! Lin Yuxuan roared. His whole body rose from the ground and thrust the 3-meter-long bronze halberd forward. With an indomitable will, the azure dragon halberd light soared into the sky. "Come at me!" The pale-faced youngster waved his fan 3 times at the azure dragon halberd light, and the two brushed past each other. Puff! Spurting out a mouthful of blood, Lin Yuxuan staggered and landed behind the pale-faced youngster. The pale-faced youngster didn't have a good time either. There was a cut on his shoulder with blood spurting out. One move. Both of them were injured. Rumble! In the sky above the palace not far away, an intense aura exploded, radiating in all directions. One side was pure white, overbearing and condensed, while the other side was ink-black, deep and gloomy. The two combatants were the young woman and Murong Qingqing. One cultivated a pure and fierce martial art, while the other cultivated a dark martial art. It could be said that they were evenly matched. Neither of them could do anything to the other and could only clash again and again, hoping to suppress the other in terms of endurance. Dark force field. While retreating, Murong Qingqing's body suddenly flickered with purplish-black lightning, and a distorted force field enveloped the young woman. Puff! This force field contained a powerful repulsive force. Originally, the young woman shouldn't have been injured by this repulsive force. However, the two of them had clashed countless times, and were already somewhat exhausted. Adding on that last clash, her blood and qi were still boiling, and she didn't have time to adjust her condition. Who would have thought that Murong Qingqing still had this hidden card? Spurting out a mouthful of blood, the young woman was sent flying. Come back! Murong Qingqing's right hand made a grabbing motion in the air, forcibly pulling the young woman over. She used dark gravity. Don't go too far. The white Jin Yuan on the young woman's body started burning like a white sacred flame. With a shout, she punched at Murong Qingqing, and white light shone brightly. Swish! A pair of black wings suddenly stretched out from Murong Qingqing's back. Black qi surged, and she disappeared in front of the young woman. That invincible punch naturally missed. Not good! The young woman hurriedly turned around and punched. Pung! Murong Qingqing was blasted back, and the young woman spurted out another mouthful of blood. Richlight Oceanspan was a gathering place for experts. It could be said that experts were as common as cloud. For Square Island was one of the few flourishing islands in Richlight Oceanspan. Thus, every island here was naturally a gathering of experts. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the two sides fighting in the palace were all elites of Foursquare Island. Once they returned to their respective territories, they would be near invincible existences under life and death realm. Unfortunately, when experts met experts, invincible would become not so easy. For example, the skinny middle-aged man fighting with Yi Chen was an ordinary expert. If placed in True Spirit Continent, even if he didn't rank in the top 5, he would at least rank in the top 10. However, he was also unlucky to run into Yi Chen. His battle skills were worthless in front of Yi Chen, and his display of weakness was also useless in front of Yi Chen. In any case, Yi Chen was the kind of person who had no weaknesses. If one wanted to defeat him, one would have to use overwhelming superiority. Apart from this, there was no other way. The skinny middle-aged man was forced into a panic by Yi Chen's mysterious sword arts. His mysterious movement technique had become his trump card, and he couldn't gain the slightest upper hand. I don't believe it. The skinny middle-aged man was enraged. His body split into 9, and the 9 figures surrounded and attacked Yi Chen. Sometimes 2 against 1, sometimes 3 against 1. Sometimes he sent a clone to his death, fighting for an opportunity for the other clones and the main body. Go! Yi Chen leaped high and pointed with his left sword finger. Clang! 9 sword shadows shot out. Puff, 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 puff. The middle-aged man's clones were swept clean, and his main body retreated several steps. Die! Right at this moment, a skinny middle-aged man appeared in the void behind Yi Chen. Meanwhile, the main body, which had been pushed back several steps, turned into green smoke with a ping sound. It turned out that the doppelganger secret art cultivated by the skinny middle-aged man was an extremely powerful heaven-grade mid-rank secret art. Not only could it create a doppelganger, it could also create a fake body. Apart from not having any flesh or bones, the fake body was almost no different from the main body. The only weakness was that condensing a fake body required 40% of his Jin Yuan. The ghost claw was like lightning as the middle-aged man clawed through Yi Chen's head. Not right. The middle-aged man's expression changed. The Yi Chen he had clawed through did not have a real body and was just a void. You have a cloning secret art, and I have a shadow profound martial art. The main body appeared behind the middle-aged man, and Yi Chen stabbed out with his sword, piercing through the middle-aged man's head and coming out from the middle of his eyebrows. Swoosh! Pulling out the sword, Yi Chen quickly retreated, while the middle-aged man fell on his back. This was his main body, not a clone or fake body. He did not expect that Yi Chen had also comprehended a shadow profound, and it was so profound that even he could not see through it. Huff! Landing on the ground, Yi Chen let out a breath of turbid air and thought to himself, it was not easy at all. In the battle with the middle-aged man, Yi Chen did not use his trump card, because the middle-aged man had too many clones, and he could not lock onto any of them at all. The latter would not give him the time to use it, and forcefully using it would only be a waste of Jin Yuan. Of course, Yi Chen was confident that he could kill the middle-aged man with bewitching mirror shattering, but he did not want to reveal it yet. Chapter 789. After killing the skinny middle-aged man, Yi Chen stood in place and did not go to help anyone, because there was no one on his side who needed help. Jin Wenshuang was fighting Shi Xiaobao, and the latter still had the upper hand. The cold-faced youngster was fighting against the middle-aged scholar. Both of them were sword artists, and if Yi Chen went to help, it would only make the cold-faced youngster unhappy. As for Lin Yuxuan, it was better to forget about it. This person was extremely arrogant, so how could he accept the help of others? The twin brothers had strange and unfathomable characters, so it was better not to interfere. As for the yellow-robed woman, no matter how Yi Chen looked at it, it was her opponent who needed help. If he went, it would only be superfluous. Moreover, Murong Qingqing had also gained the upper hand, suppressing the young woman. It seemed that the battle would be settled after a while. In the end, the battle between the old man and the raincoat old man was a bit confusing. The old man's style was fast, precise, and accurate, while the raincoat old man's style was the same as his attire, strange and inexplicable. Sometimes it was better to attack in a straight line, but he always chose an arc. Sometimes, when it was necessary to clash head-on, he would retreat with all his might, and when it was necessary to retreat, he would attack with all his might. In short, it could not be speculated with common sense. Retracting his gaze, Yi Chen turned around and looked at the small mountain of upper-grade spirit stones at the center of the palace. The reason this astonishing amount of upper-grade spirit stones could be preserved for so many years was directly related to the formation below. If Yi Chen's guess was correct, this formation should be called the spirit-locking formation, which could lock spirit qi within the formation and not let it leak out. Apart from locking spirit qi, the spirit-locking formation also had a powerful defensive ability. Once the qi surging back and forth in the palace rushed over, it would immediately be deflected by the formation's power, unable to shake it in the slightest. However, the spirit-locking formation was, after all, not a defensive formation. After suffering countless attacks, it became unstable and flickered. Yi Chen didn't dare to break open the array and collect the upper-grade spirit stones. He was afraid that once the array was broken, the upper-grade spirit stones inside would be shattered by the qi energies coming from all directions. If he were to shatter more than 500 million upper-grade spirit stones, he wouldn't be able to forgive himself. Therefore, even if he had nothing to do, he could only watch from the side without doing anything. 4 symbols Sky Absolute Sword Art. Limitless Death Sword. The confrontation between the two peak sword artists attracted Yi Chen's attention. The middle-aged scholar and the cold-faced youngster both used their killing moves, preparing to decide the victor and the loser. The middle-aged scholar's killing move contained 4 elements: wood profound, metal profound, fire profound, and water profound. Of course, these 4 profounds weren't fused, but rather separated and complemented each other. 4 consecutive sword strikes cut off all of the cold-faced youngster's paths of retreat and advance, giving off an aura of extermination. Meanwhile, the cold-faced youngster's killing move fused the earth profound and metal profound, carrying the weight of earth and sharpness of metal. It didn't need many transformations. Once the sword pierced out, even gods and ghosts wouldn't be able to escape. It aimed at the middle-aged scholar's flaw. Amazing! Either one of them has the strength to compete with me. If I don't use bewitching mirror shattering, it will be almost impossible for me to defeat them. Even if I use it, I only have a 70% chance of defeating them. Yi Chen's mind turned quickly, analyzing the two's strength and comparing it with his own. In the blink of an eye, the two's killing moves collided with each other, and then thousands of cold stars burst out. Even Yi Chen couldn't figure out what had happened in a split second, and could only speculate based on the trajectory of the thousands of cold stars. Puff! The cold stars faded, and a stream of blood sprayed 7 or 8 feet high. The middle-aged scholar's head was raised up, and on his neck there was a horrifying sword mark. His throat had been cut, and his spine was strangely broken, unable to support the weight of his head. In the confrontation of killing moves, the middle-aged scholar was the first to die. Yi Chen then looked at the cold-faced youngster. The cold-faced youngster's injury was very serious. For an ordinary person, this would be a fatal injury. His left and right chest were pierced, and his 2 thighs were also cut with deep sword marks. Blood spurted out crazily, and his whole body seemed to be bathed in blood. One dead, one seriously injured. This is a battle between swordsmen. Yi Chen sighed. Clang! After killing the middle-aged scholar, the cold-faced youngster's body went limp. His long sword fell to the ground, and he knelt on both knees, spurting out a huge mouthful of blood. His hair was drenched in sweat and blood. At this moment, not to mention a half-step king, even an astral-reaching expert could easily kill him. The injuries on his thighs and right chest couldn't be considered fatal. However, the injury on his left chest was extremely fatal. If not for the slightest deviation, his heart would have been pierced, and he would have died. It could be said that his survival was 70 to 80% luck. This middle-aged scholar was the most frightening sword artist he had ever encountered, and had the possibility of killing him. Die. Right at this moment, a huge lion claw suddenly attacked the cold-faced youngster. The huge lion claw shone with a golden luster, and its owner was naturally Shi Xiaobao in his true form. It turned out that Shi Xiaobao and Jin Wanchuang had both been blown back by the clash just now, and Shi Xiaobao had been blown back by the cold-faced youngster. Seeing that the cold-faced youngster had killed the middle-aged scholar and was also heavily injured, Shi Xiaobao casually swiped his claw, wanting to kill him. The cold-faced youngster didn't even have the strength to raise his eyes, let alone defend with his sword. If there were no mishaps, his death was already decided. Clang! However, a mishap occurred. A long sword blocked Shi Xiaobao's claw. It was Yi Chen. You're courting death. Shi Xiaobao's huge lion head spat out human words as he glowered at Yi Chen. Yi Chen faintly smiled. We're enemies. Since we're enemies, I can't let you have your way. The reply to Yi Chen was a furious roar. Shi Xiaobao's body twisted, and his other claw swiped at Yi Chen like lightning. Go back. Yi Chen held his sword with both hands. A black lightning ball condensed on the blade and instantly exploded, sending Shi Xiaobao flying. Dozens of golden hairs danced in the air. Dong! After returning to his true form, the lion claw was Shi Xiaobao's toughest part. Yi Chen's sword didn't injure him, but when he was sent flying into the air, a silver silhouette shot over and punched his chest, issuing a drum-like sound. After this punch, Jin Wanchuang didn't get greedy and immediately retreated to avoid Shi Xiaobao's counterattack. Sure enough, after receiving this powerful punch, Shi Xiaobao's mouth and nose leaked a large amount of blood. However, what he did first was not to temporarily dodge, but to fiercely counterattack. Under the pain, Shi Xiaobao's counterattack was even crazier than his all-out attack. Unfortunately, how could Jin Wanchuang give him such an opportunity? Failing his counterattack, Shi Xiaobao was sent flying backward. His 4 claws landed on the ground, and there was a small fist imprint on his chest. Blood flowed out of his 7 apertures, indicating that he had suffered a serious internal injury. If he wasn't a genius of the Golden Lion race with the noblest peak high-rank bloodline and an incomparably tyrannical fleshly body, even if he didn't die from this punch, he would be heavily injured. However, his strength was similar to Jin Wanchuang's, and with enough time, he had the confidence to grind Jin Wanchuang to death. But now that he was injured, he was definitely not Jin Wanchuang's opponent. Turning his head to look at the others, Shi Xiaobao turned silent. Apart from the rain-robed old man, the others had either encountered an opponent that was hard to determine, or had an opponent that was as unfathomable as the rain-robed old man. The situation was not as good as he had imagined. If this continued, they would be annihilated one by one. Retreat! Shi Xiaobao roared and shot toward the teleportation array. Swoosh! Swoosh! Just as Shi Xiaobao's voice faded, 2 people flashed over. One was a pale-faced young lady, and the other was a blood-soaked masked man. These 2 had encountered extremely powerful opponents. The young lady's opponent was Murong Qingqing, who was extremely fast and possessed a mysterious dark martial art. The masked man's opponent was Daerba, a monster with an undying fleshly body. Therefore, they had long since thought of retreating. Time to retreat. Hee, your strength is not bad. This old man will not play with you anymore. The rain-robed old man shuttled through the rain, his figure flickering erratically as he shook off the weathered old man and flashed toward the teleportation array, leaving behind countless afterimages. The middle-aged lady saw that the situation was not right and abandoned the curly-bearded man. The pale-faced young man was rather unlucky. His path of retreat coincided with the bald fatty's. The latter's movement technique was too powerful, and Daer Xiong did not manage to hit him. Instead, his axe chopped down on the pale-faced young man's body, splitting him into 2 from head to toe. Seeing that most of the enemies had fled, Jin Wanchuang and the rest did not stop them. As the saying goes, don't chase a cornered enemy. If you force the enemy into a desperate situation, you would inevitably face the enemy's final counterattack. Everyone's strength was equal, and one side's final counterattack would more or less increase the number of casualties. Let's go. The teleportation array had already been activated, flickering with radiance. Shi Xiaobao coldly said. The masked man said, "There's one more." He looked at the curly-bearded man. Shi Xiaobao shook his head. He won't be able to live. At the last moment, the yellow-robed lady became slightly serious. Her body turned into a stream of light and coiled around the curly-bearded man like a huge yellow snake. Clatter! The curly-bearded man's body emitted continuous popping sounds. As soon as the yellow-robed lady left, his body softened and collapsed on the ground like a pile of meat. In just a moment, the curly-bearded man's bones were completely shattered. The yellow-robed lady's strength shocked everyone. Buzz! The teleportation array flickered, and Shi Xiaobao and the rest disappeared from the palace. I owe you my life, the cold-faced youngster said to Yi Chen. He's also my enemy. Yi Chen sheathed his sword. Those are 2 different matters. This life of mine, I will return it to you. Saying so, the cold-faced youngster sat cross-legged on the ground and closed his eyes to begin healing. Yi Chen faintly smiled and moved closer to the others. The silver luster on Jin Wanchuang's body receded as he sized up everyone. Seeing that the middle-aged woman and the yellow-faced man had died, he couldn't help but sigh. The 10 people he had invited were all experts, but facing an elite like them, casualties were unavoidable. Fortunately, the enemies had more casualties. 10 had come, but only 6 were left. 4 had died, which was double their numbers. Even if they won this battle, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Chapter 790. The dead could not come back to life. Moreover, they did not have any deep feelings for the middle-aged woman and the yellow-faced man. They were not even friends, so they naturally would not feel sad. Since they were already dead, the treasures still had to be divided. What was undeniable was that with the two dead, each of them would get a bigger share of the treasures. Everyone's emotions were complicated. Clearing his throat, Jean Wanchuang said, "Right now there are 9 of us left. Lady Murong will get 20% of the treasures, and we will each get 10%. Now let's break the formation and count the upper-grade spirit stones." As he spoke, Jean Wanchuang arrived before the spirit lock array. Silver light overflowed from his palm as Jean Wanchuang's palm slammed into the void. A ring of light yellow light blossomed in the void. It was the light of the spirit lock array. As Jean Wanchuang's palm slammed down, the array's light fluctuated, dimming and brightening at times. Jean Wanchuang had long since had experience in this aspect. His palm pressed against the array's light and swiped horizontally. Pop! The spirit lock array was broken, and the dense spirit chi within the array was released, spreading out in all directions. In an instant, the entire palace was filled with spirit chi, making it slightly moist. Hee. The twin brothers could not help but smile. The previous battle had made them extremely satisfied, and now there was so much wealth waiting for them. Life's happiness was nothing more than this. Just like the twin brothers, everyone revealed a knowing smile. The killing intent left over from the great battle also vanished like smoke in thin air. As for the middle-aged woman and the yellow-faced man's deaths, they had long since forgotten about them. At this moment, no one was thinking about them. All they were thinking about was how many high-grade spirit stones they could get. Everyone, start counting. Jean Wanchuang nodded to everyone. With their powerful soul power, everyone's counting speed was extremely fast. In just a short while, everyone had finished. I have 81 million here. I have 75 million here. 84 million. Apart from the indifferent young man who was still recovering from his injuries, the 8 of them added up to a total of 648 million, which was more than 100 million more than the 500 million. This was definitely a great harvest. Even if they did not gain anything from this, it was still a rewarding trip. Jean Wanchuang said with a smile, "A total of 648 million. 10% is 64,800,000. Lady Murong will take 20%, so it will be 129,600,000. Now everyone can take your share. Don't take more, but don't take less either." "It's more than I imagined." Yi Chen's upper-grade spirit stones had already surpassed 30 million, reaching a total of 36 million. With the addition of 64,800,000, he had over 100 million. Such a huge amount of wealth was something even the majority of 6th-grade sects couldn't compare to. If not for the upper-grade storage ring he had obtained in the Blackwater Alliance's crystal vault, a mid-grade storage ring wouldn't have been able to store so many upper-grade spirit stones. Murong Qingqing's harvest was the most. This was all thanks to her dark force field, which allowed her to obtain 2 portions of the wealth. After collecting their own upper-grade spirit stones, everyone's gazes fell on the 7 chests of energy crystals. The distribution of energy crystals was a bit complicated, because there were too many types of energy crystals, and everyone's needs were different. However, energy crystals were the same as spirit stones, and could also be used for cultivation. For example, for those who cultivated fire Jinyuan, using fire energy crystals to cultivate would have a better effect than using spirit stones of the same grade. Moreover, it could increase the destructive power of the fire Jinyuan, as well as contain more fire attribute energy. First, let's count how many energy crystals we have. Jean Wanchuang frowned and said. Soon, the number of energy crystals was also counted. There were 70,000 upper-grade energy crystals in total, 10,000 per chest. Among them, there were 8,000 gold energy crystals, 10,000 wood energy crystals, 12,000 water energy crystals, 11,000 fire energy crystals, 13,000 earth energy crystals, 7,000 wind energy crystals, 5,000 thunder energy crystals, 2,000 light energy crystals, 2,000 dark energy crystals. There were energy crystals of all 9 major attributes, and the quantity varied according to their rarity. The rarest ones were naturally light and dark. Jin Wanshuang said, 70,000 energy crystals, divided equally among the 9 of us. Each of us will get 7,777 crystals. I cultivate metal element Zhen Yuan, and I don't see anyone cultivating metal element Zhen Yuan in the team. Thus, I will take 7,777 metal element crystals. I want 2,000 dark energy crystals. The rest doesn't matter. Murong Qinqing also said. Yi Chen said, I don't care about any energy crystals. The Zhen Yuan he cultivated did not contain any attribute, and was the purest Zhen Yuan. In this way, the distribution was much easier. Among the 9, there weren't many who cultivated attributed Zhen Yuan. Moreover, they didn't overlap, so there was no conflict between them. Yi Chen took a bit of each attributed energy crystal. Even if he didn't cultivate, he could still use these crystals as a form of wealth. After distributing the energy crystals, there was nothing left in the palace. Alright, the distribution is done. Everyone can rest here for a while and heal your injuries, Jin Wanshuang said. Among the 9, the one with the heaviest injuries was the cold-faced youngster, followed by Lin Yushuan. Jin Wanshuang and Shi Xiaobao had also suffered some light injuries. The remaining 6 were not injured, but they needed to replenish their Zhen Yuan. At this moment, time was not pressing, so no one wasted precious pills. Instead, they sat cross-legged to recover their Zhen Yuan. Half a day later, apart from the cold-faced youngster, everyone had recovered to their peak state. A day later, the cold-faced young man also stopped healing. His injuries weren't something that could be healed in a short period of time. However, with the help of precious medicinal pills, he was almost fully recovered. He didn't want to waste everyone's time, so he stopped healing. Let's go. Jin Wanshuang waved his hand and walked out of the palace. There were 2 paths outside the palace, one to the left and the other to the right. Everyone chose the path on the right. Following the path, they gradually arrived at the core of the ruins. The surroundings were filled with layers of buildings, and the atmosphere was gloomy. Murong Qinqing suddenly whispered into Yi Chen's ear, I saw a blurry shadow just now. It wasn't an illusion. Oh. Yi Chen was moved, even ignoring the hot breath that Murong Qinqing blew into his ear. While walking, Yi Chen pondered for a while, then said, I don't know what happened here, but I don't think it was anything good. The fall of the true water palace is most likely related to this, and the ruins have become an ominous place. Should we tell them? Murong Qinqing asked. Yi Chen shook his head and said, Even if we tell them, they will not leave. After all, exploring ruins is a dangerous thing. How could they be scared by a blurry shadow? Telling them now will only make them feel uneasy. Yi Chen used his soul eyes, so he could naturally see the blurry shadow as well. However, under normal circumstances, he could not sense where the shadow was. Murong Qinqing was different. She cultivated demon power, and she had the perfect demi-demon bloodline, so she was very sensitive to dark things. Among the group, only Murong Qinqing could sense the shadow watching them. Yeah, that makes sense. Murong Qinqing nodded. Alright, no matter if the shadow is a human or a ghost, it will be exposed one day. At that time, we will act according to the situation. Yi Chen was not too afraid of this kind of evil being. His destruction sword intent and immortal sword intent were not to be trifled with, and were specialized in dealing with formless evil beings. The road was full of twists and turns, and before long, they had passed through a series of buildings and arrived in front of a magnificent, cold, and dignified tower. The base of this tower was more than 10 times the size of an ordinary manor. It was 1,000 meters tall and had a total of 33 floors. It was like a giant's tower. This tower was also the tallest building in the ruins. On the door of the tower's first floor, 3 words were carved: Mysterious Een Tower. Mysterious Een Tower, could this ruin be the residence of the true Water Palace's life and death king? Jean Wanchuang guessed. At its peak, True Water Palace had 1 titled monarch and 13 life and death kings. Its reputation was like a rainbow, like the sun in the midday sky. As a life and death king, his position was naturally the most respected. Controlling a faction was nothing out of the ordinary. The mysterious Een King is already dead. There must be all of his wealth in this tower. The brother Daer Xiong laughed heartily. The old man said, whether it's mysterious Een King or not, we can't be sure. However, the Een Chi in this tower is too dense. It's almost the densest place in this ruin. It's very ominous. If you're afraid, you can leave. I have to enter this tower no matter what. Daer Ba was the same as his brother, not knowing what fear was. This old man has lived for a long time. How could I be afraid of death? I just don't want to die in vain. The old man didn't lower himself to Daer Ba's level. Lin Yuxuan said at this moment, the tower contains great treasures. This is 80 to 90% certain. I'll definitely go in and take a look. Otherwise, this trip would be a waste. Lin Yuxuan was also a person with great fortune. The reason why he could have the strength he had today was because he had many fortunes and obtained many treasures. Therefore, in his eyes, the mysterious Een Tower was a land of treasures. As for the danger, that was normal. Without danger, there was no value in exploring this place. Everyone. As the nominal leader of this team, Jean Wanchuang spoke. The mysterious Een Tower is basically the most valuable place in this ruin, and the reason we came here is also for the treasures. I agree to enter this tower. If there is anyone who doesn't agree, you can wait outside, or you can explore other places on your own. Jean Wanchuang had made his stance clear. Everyone knew that they had to enter. If they stayed outside, what if they ran into other people? As for exploring other places, it would be even more dangerous if they went alone. After all, everyone could see that this place was not a peaceful place. Therefore, no matter how dangerous the tower was, entering was an inevitable choice. As for other situations, they could think about it later.